The gloomy day foreshadowed something ominous when the elements suddenly descended on the city with cold streams of rain. As if out of nowhere, a monstrous roar shook the earth, causing the high-rise buildings to shudder from the sudden impact. The blast waves scattered asphalt debris and dust, turning the familiar streets into a battlefield. Amidst the general chaos, people stood frozen, their faces reflecting silent horror in the face of the unknown. The crowd froze in stupor, frantically pressing their fingers into their smartphone screens in the hope of finding at least some explanation for the nightmare. Even in the classrooms, panic reigned as students and teachers recoiled in shock from the broken windows. Families clutched their children, watching in horror as the familiar world behind the glass collapses. But among the confused passers-by, someone is already ready to take a step towards danger. Secret energy awakens in the palms, enveloping them in a shining halo of invisible power. A second later, a decisive jump carries the fighter into the epicenter of the battle. A crushing backhand blow falls upon the giant monster, causing the beast to choke in pain. Meanwhile, another protector quickly enters the fray, directing streams of pure energy at the writhing creatures. Park Han-yul expertly dodges the monster's deadly mandibles, gliding through the ruins with incredible grace. His gaze is full of cold determination because the outcome of this battle depends on every movement. Ancient symbols flash with golden light, forming a complex mystical barrier. 5 chosen warriors unite their powers in a single circle, forming an invincible shield for humanity. Intricate runic circles pulse with blue light, resonating with awakened ancient magic. Then creatures appeared that were capable of resisting them. Like ancient legends come to life, they unleash all their fury on monsters, protecting the fragile world of people. Park Han-yul crushes the giant beast with a powerful blow, proving that humanity will not give up without a fight. The monster's impact turns the asphalt and cars into a pile of rubble, sowing panic all around. A monstrous monster with a predatory grin and glowing red eyes demonstrates all its primal rage. People flee in terror, leaving their cars and hope behind. Chaos on the city streets reaches its peak as everyone fights for their lives. The massive creature spreads its wings, looming over the ruins like the embodiment of the apocalypse. His bestial roar echoes throughout the area, making the blood run cold. The red gleam in the beast's eyes betrays an insatiable thirst for destruction. But in the midst of this madness, there emerges one who has no intention of fleeing from danger. Park Han-yul calmly takes a drag on his cigarette, remaining absolutely calm in the midst of the disaster. His hand rests confidently on the hilt of the weapon, ready to release hidden power at any moment. Shrouded in a mystical aura, he rises among the ruins as the only protector of this city. His predatory gaze and slight grin reveal him to be a predator who has gone out to hunt. The monster lets out a piercing screech, sensing the threat emanating from the uninvited guest. The huge creature tries to attack, but Park Han-yul is already behind it. Rising into the air with incredible ease, he defies the laws of gravity. His scarlet eyes burn with determination, and his blade cuts through the air with unprecedented speed. A powerful blow falls upon the monster, shaking the space around it with a wave of pure energy. With a clever maneuver, Park Han-yul avoids the giant beast's counterattack. A new wave of destructive force pierces the air, causing the monster to roar in rage. A blinding flash of energy pierces the heavens, marking the culmination of this mortal combat. The monster's massive bulk shudders from the crushing blow, leaving behind only thick clouds of dust and the heavy echo of battle. Eyewitnesses froze in place, watching in reverent horror as their familiar world collapsed. At the top of an abandoned building stands the lonely silhouette of someone who decided to challenge the monster. Park Han-yul casts a cheeky glance at the scene, enjoying the moment of everyone's amazement. His swift leap cuts through the air, heading straight for the epicenter of chaos. Smartphone screens instantly fill with enthusiastic comments from the shocked public. The crowd freezes in anticipation of a grand spectacle as the savior hovers above the city's buildings. Suddenly, the tension gives way to the measured atmosphere of an ordinary warehouse. Park Han-yul confidently uncorks the treasured bottle as if she knew the secret of endless energy. The usual bustle reigns all around, and those around only quietly complain about the fatigue accumulated during the day. A refreshing sip instantly restores his strength, making him forget about any obstacles. With a slight smile, Park Han-yul hurries off from her shift, leaving behind her tired colleagues. His offer to join them is politely declined, as he has completely different plans on the agenda. The guy's tireless energy causes genuine bewilderment in those who can barely stand on their feet from fatigue. Park Han-yul walks confidently along the pedestrian crossing, feeling like he is in charge of the situation. 22-year-old Park Han-yul touches her chin thoughtfully, radiating absolute self-confidence. In another recollection, co-workers enthusiastically share their stash of vitamins and supplements. Park Han-yeol's body literally explodes with an influx of fresh energy, as if being charged with pure energy. Stepping out onto the streets of the metropolis, he feels incredibly energetic and ready for any surprises. Park Han-yeol glances at her phone screen, noticing someone's keen interest behind her. Park Han-yeol turns around at the call, genuinely confused as to who could need him. A stranger confidently walks towards him, hesitantly trying to find the right words. The wildest guesses instantly flash through Park Han-yeol's head, fueled by the sweet anticipation of romance. With a beaming smile, he openly greets the stranger, ready to listen to any confession. However, harsh reality immediately hits him like an icy shower. A girl runs past, screaming hysterically as she runs, advertising slogans of some dubious organization. Park Han-yeol looks at her in shock, realizing that his romantic fantasies have been shattered in an instant. His legs themselves carry him away from this awkward place, forcing him to quicken his steps. Park Han-yeol runs down the street as if his life depended on it. Suddenly, memories take him far back into the past, to events that changed his family forever. The father sits in front of them with burning eyes, seriously believing in his crazy destiny. It all started with harmless oddities, but quickly developed into a real nightmare. The head of the family's body could not withstand the dubious experiments on himself. Little Park Han-yeol clings to his mother in fear, not yet fully understanding the scale of the family tragedy. Memory brings him back to reality, reminding him of the hard times when he and his mother had to survive alone. After paying for her purchase at the store, Park Han-yeol customarily wishes the salesperson a good day. He goes outside, not even suspecting what surprise this day has in store for him. After taking a few steps, Park Han-yeol suddenly freezes, noticing something strange. Soaring into the sky, he sees an incredible sight that makes him forget about everything in the world. Panic grips the city, and giant rings of light in the sky catch the eye of every passerby. The streets are plunged into chaos, and frightened passersby panic and take out their phones, trying to capture the inexplicable. Park Han-yeol has just left the store and is looking around in confusion, trying to understand the reason for the general commotion. He takes a sip from his can, commenting on how what's happening around him clearly doesn't look like a typical blockbuster filming. Suddenly, the gas gets stuck in his throat, causing Park Han-yeol to choke in surprise. The ground beneath their feet begins to shake, and frightened people run away in terror in all directions. From cracks in the asphalt, terrifying clawed paws appear, tearing apart the rocky ground. Park Han-yeol freezes in place, not believing his own eyes, when a terrifying, hellish creature appears before him. A monster with dimly glowing eyes and a massive club lands heavily on the cracked asphalt. Baring its fangs, the monster lets out a deafening roar, sowing panic among the surviving passers-by. Park Han-yeol swallows the lump in his throat, feeling a strange, inexplicable pulse awakening inside him. At that moment, an ominous phantom materializes behind him, as if merging with his own reflection. The demon lets out a ferocious cry, ready to tear apart anyone who stands in his way. The monster raises his heavy mace, preparing to deliver a crushing blow to the unsuspecting boy. The whistle of air cutting through the air foretells imminent death, but Park Han-yeol barely has time to react. The heavy mace crushes everything around, but Park Han-yeol miraculously dodges the deadly blow. Park Han-yeol retreats to a safe distance, watching as a whole pack of angry monsters fill the streets. A booming echo tears through the air, and a can of coffee falls from weakened hands onto the asphalt. The drink spreads out into a picturesque puddle on the ground as Park Han-yeol stares at his hands in shock. Park Han-yeol realizes that this incredible, frightening power awakened within him for a reason. Cries of despair are heard all around, and the horde of terrible creatures continues to destroy everything in its path. Every cell in Park Han-yeol's body vibrates with overwhelming energy, turning fear into cold determination. Like a spring straightened under the pressure of circumstances, he makes a powerful lunge. A kick of incredible force lands on the monster, sending the beast flying backwards. The creature flies into the wall of the building with a wild squeal, raising clouds of stone dust. Park Han-yeol pauses for a moment, taking in the scale of the destruction from his new vantage point. A new monster rushes to attack, emitting blood-curdling screams. The monster slams a heavy mace onto the asphalt, sending up a shower of sparks. The enemy's aggressive grin only fuels the excitement in Park Han-yeol's eyes. They rush towards each other in a frantic rhythm of mortal combat. Park Han-yeol instantly closes the distance, gliding just above the road. Their hands rush towards the fallen weapon. Whoever takes possession of it first will win. A powerful swing turns the trophy into a deadly tool in the guy's hands. In a single leap, Park Han-yul catches up with the enemy, delivering a crushing blow from above. A deafening roar shakes the air as the monster collapses unconscious. Park Han-yul breathes heavily, realizing that he has overcome this challenge. Suddenly, a whole flock of enraged creatures rushes at him from all sides. Park Han-yul looks defiantly at the approaching threat, feeling the adrenaline rush through her veins. One of the monsters tries to attack head-on, but the hero meets it face to face. A series of lightning-fast strikes turns the battlefield into a mad dance of destruction. Each swing knocks enemies back, proving that he now dictates the rules. Every swing of his weapon fills the air with the whistle of space being cut. Park Han-yul puts all his pent-up fury into his attack, causing his enemies to shudder with every hit. A crushing blow to the very point throws monsters back, leaving them without a chance to defend themselves. The intensity of the fight reaches its peak as the opponents fall under the onslaught of his power. But Park Han-yul doesn't allow himself to relax for a second, controlling the battlefield until his last breath. There's devastation all around, and the calm after the storm seems almost unreal. Looking around at his fallen enemies, Park Han-yul breathes heavily, realizing the scale of what happened. It seems like it's all truly over, but the tension in the air still hangs heavy. Park Han-yul wonders what awaits him around the next corner of this crazy reality. Before he can catch his breath, reality throws him a new, frightening test. A giant figure appears out of nowhere in front of him, causing him to freeze in surprise. The huge monster bares its teeth in a bloodthirsty grimace, radiating a threatening aura. Park Han-yul grips his weapon tighter, determined to test his luck against this giant. His eyes reflect the bold challenge and cold calculation. What if this giant turns out to be not as scary as he looks? But this self-confidence is immediately replaced by chilling horror. A huge mace whistles to the air right above his head. The monster raises its weapon for another crushing blow, leaving no time to think. Park Han-yul freezes in horror, realizing the mortal danger of the situation. The deadly shadow looms over him again with unbearable weight. Every moment feels like an eternity, demanding immediate action from Park Han-yul. Panicked cries are heard outside, calling for immediate barricades. Panic reigns inside. Frightened people demand that each other lock the doors and hide. At that moment, a powerful blow destroys the display case, taking everyone by surprise. Shards of glass and fragments of walls fly in all directions, sweeping away everything in their path. A desperate maneuver saves from certain death, but the roar from the fall is deafening. Amidst the thick dust and ruins, an ominous silhouette clearly emerges. The monstrous demon towers over the ruins in all its glory, radiating menace. The survivors retreat in horror, paralyzed by the primal fear of death. The bloodthirsty creature looms over its victim, leaving no hope of salvation. But before the situation becomes hopeless, Park Han-yul calmly lights a cigarette. With a slight movement, he throws away the lighter, seizing the initiative. A powerful leap carries him straight into the epicenter of the battle, towering over the enemy. In flight, Park Han-yul adopts a perfect fighting stance, concentrating his deadly force. His blow falls on the monster with incredible, crushing force. The full force of this onslaught slams the monster into the stone floor with a deafening roar. From the powerful impulse, deep cracks appear on the ground, and the demon himself lets out a cry of pain. The fallen giant lies limply among the rubble on a city street. Park Han-yul slowly walks forward, confidently approaching his defeated opponent. He takes a calm drag, enjoying the moment of complete silence after the storm. Enveloped in clouds of smoke, Park Han-yul lazily exhales smoke, demonstrating absolute superiority. One confident step, and Park Han-yul seems to challenge fate itself. He easily tosses aside the cigarette butt, lighting up the space with a cheeky, almost insane grin. With a momentary jerk, Park Han-yul takes off with a cry of rage. A powerful blow knocks the monster out, shaking the street itself. Park Han-yul doesn't give him any respite, closing the distance with lightning speed. The monster tries to respond with blind rage, but the blows only cut through air. The beast can hardly contain the anger seething inside. But the very next second, the monster jerks to its feet, thirsting for revenge. Park Han-yul stops any attempt at counterattack with a crushing lunge. The asphalt cracks under the hail of crushing blows from the giant. Park Han-yul easily dodges the attack, noticing the enemy's stubbornness. Another precise blow again throws the monster to the ground. The enemy is defeated and wheezes heavily, burying his face in the rubble. Park Han-yul stands proudly over the body of his fallen opponent. He catches his breath, feeling the adrenaline slowly ebb away. But it's too early to relax for a second. Park Han-yul even forgets about everything, thinking only about her loved ones. An unexpected whistle cuts through the air right behind him. The monster suddenly comes to life and delivers a monstrous blow from behind. A powerful attack sends Park Han-yul crashing into the road. Pain pierces his body, but this only fuels his fighting spirit. The monster swings for a crushing blow, intending to slam the opponent into the asphalt. A deafening roar breaks the silence of the street, raising clouds of stone chips. But the next second, the monster's open mouth is distorted with pure amazement. Park Han-yul's dark hand tightly intercepts the monstrous fist, stopping it from swinging. Through pain and gnashing of teeth, the guy grits out a demand to stop this lawlessness. Gathering the last of his strength, Park Han-yul delivers a counter blow of incredible power straight into the monster's jaw. The enemy chokes on his own blood, stunned by the unexpected rebuff. Pressed against the broken wall, Park Han-yul breathes heavily, gathering his crumbling concentration. His gaze is cold and calculating, even when his body refuses to obey. With one sharp movement of his leg, he knocks out the defeated brute. My breathing becomes ragged, and in my thoughts I hear the bitter realization of the impending limit. But a sharp cry pierces the air, causing the guy to instantly raise his head. There is real chaos all around. Ruthless creatures flood the streets, chasing defenseless people. Park Han-yul clenches his teeth in impotent rage as he watches this nightmare. Another victim runs screaming in horror across the hot asphalt straight into a trap. A clawed paw closes mercilessly on the unfortunate one's throat, leaving no chance for salvation. A bright flash of anger lights up Park Han-yul's eyes, making him forget about his own pain. Go, ash alow if you do have for another aspect indistended. The world around Park Han-yul is crumbling, and every moment threatens to be his last in the face of inevitable death. A sudden blow shakes the space, throwing enemies away with incredible force. A mysterious figure in white robes falls rapidly from the sky, cutting through the dark clouds. The landing is so powerful that it sends a wave of destructive energy throughout the entire street. In an instant, an ancient talisman flares up in the stranger's hand, ready to release hidden power. A blinding stream of energy bursts forth, rushing over the cracked asphalt. A beam of light cuts through the crowd of monsters, causing them to roar in fury and fear. A powerful energy barrier explodes around, sweeping away everything in its path. The monsters dissolve one after another in an electric discharge, leaving no trace. A powerful pulse of energy reduces the remains of enemies to dust in a split second. Park Han-yul wakes up in the middle of the ruins, looking around the battlefield with bated breath. Looking up, he sees a lone figure towering over his fallen enemies. A mixture of shock and disbelief can be seen in Park Han-yul's eyes. Could an ordinary person really do such a thing? The guy's gaze freezes in confusion, because what is happening completely breaks all the laws of reality. The mysterious savior takes a confident step forward, towering over the confused boy. The stranger's stern and cold gaze pierced the air, causing Park Han-yul to tense up. Park Han-yul looks up silently, trying to comprehend the scale of the force before him. The gray-haired warrior stops in front of him, glaring at the guy with an icy gaze. The question is short and direct, requiring an immediate response from the survivor. Park Han-yul studies the mysterious guest, noticing every detail of his incomprehensible aura. Park Han-yul blinks in confusion, trying to comprehend what she heard. The mysterious stranger intercepts his hand, as if checking for something hidden. The intense gaze pierces Park Han-yul right through, but a shadow of doubt flickers in the guest's eyes. A slight tremor betrays a momentary disappointment. No, nothing special. Park Han-yul sits in the ruins, not understanding what exactly attracted the strange guest. Suddenly, the stranger's palm flashes with a blinding light, and Park Han-yul quickly thanks him. But the bright flash immediately goes out, leaving the guy completely bewildered. Park Han-yul smiles, genuinely happy about the unexpected rescue in the midst of this chaos. With a slight smile on his lips, he assures his savior that he prevented the disaster in time. The stranger looks at him silently with a cold, detached gaze. A strange artifact flashes, and the guest coldly declares that there is no point in wasting time any further. Park Han-yul's mouth suddenly opens, feeling something foreign entering inside. Park Han-yul's face contorted as the wild, unbearable taste lodged in his throat. Park Han-yul freezes in shock, and the world around her seems to be covered in an icy shroud. The stranger turns around calmly, throwing out some dry words about the inevitability of what is happening. With cold detachment, he explains that this is the only way to save the boy's life, even though he didn't ask for it. Park Han-yul remains sitting on the ground, shocked by the sudden turn of events. The stranger throws a mysterious phrase over his shoulder, asking not to hold a grudge against him. A powerful gust of wind raises dust as the mysterious stranger disappears into the oncoming pursuit. Park Han-yul shouts after the flying figure, but his voice is drowned out by the noise of the collapsing world. Park Han-yul falls to the ground, stunned by the aftermath of the terrible cataclysm. Fragments of thoughts are swirling in his head, what is hidden behind the mysterious concept of the wrong body. The mind frantically clings to the elusive reality, trying to comprehend the scale of the impending threat. Park Han-yul rises to her feet, feeling a nervous tremor run through her body, right down to her bones. His own superpowers save him from certain death, otherwise he would have been lying here unconscious long ago. Finding a surviving can in a ransacked store, he frantically grabs it with a death grip. With one sharp movement, Park Han-yul tears off the lid and greedily takes a swig from the bottle. Every drop of this strange elixir fills his body with a burning, primal energy. There are empty reserves around him, but there is no more time for a long search. Empty bottles and cans are scattered nearby, placed there in haste and desperation. Park Han-yul's gaze falls on another remedy that can bring him back to life. Who would have thought that ordinary hangover potions would become the key to survival? The body is still protesting, reminding me of a nightmare I experienced with a dull pain in the muscles. Words about the impending catastrophe sound in my memory like an alarm, demanding immediate action. Panic recedes, giving way to cold calculation. Urgently pack your things and hide at your mother's. A sudden, sharp sound pierces the silence of the apartment, causing Park Han-yul to freeze in surprise. He looks at his phone screen, where a strange and ominous notification pops up. The internal tension is growing. Are new creatures of chaos approaching? Park Han-yul stares at the unfamiliar app that suddenly appears on the screen in confusion. The emergency department's emergency response program looks crude, but logic dictates that it's no joke. Park Han-yul decides to follow the strange instructions and holds the ID card up to the screen. At that very moment, the phone was filled with an eerie glow that almost took the guy's breath away. Her legs give way, and Park Han-yul collapses to the floor among the empty cans, desperately clutching her chest. Through the rising panic, he frantically tries to drown out the strange state with the first energy drink he comes across. He greedily takes a swig from the can and watches the mysterious systems analysis continue on the screen. Sip after sip, the heaviness in the chest gradually recedes, replaced by a strange inner warmth. Park Han-yul takes a breath, feeling her mind clearing after her recent attack. A sudden beep makes him turn sharply towards the flickering project on the floor. The boy freezes in confusion, trying to comprehend the incredible contents of the ultimate report. Mystical images from ancient legends about hidden spiritual power emerge in his memory. But as soon as thoughts return to reality, a strange, stabbing pain pierces the body again. Park Han-yul touches her chin with her fingers in confusion, trying to figure out the source of her sudden illness. Looking around the room, he notices an unattended bag on the bed. As if driven by an invisible impulse, he falls to his knees, feeling the heat inside him grow with each passing second. It was as if an invisible flame was engulfing his body, knocking the last of his strength out of the exhausted boy. A weak groan escapes her lips as Park Han-yul finally loses her balance and falls to the floor. Gathering his last bits of willpower, he frowns stubbornly, trying to take control of what is happening. With a deft movement, he changes position, settling right on the floor in an attempt to find a comfortable position. Taking a meditative stance, Park Han-yul freezes in concentration, listening to her sensations. Scenes from old martial arts films flash through my head, suggesting the right path. Having immersed herself in the practice, Park Han-yul unexpectedly notes the incredible comfort of this pose. He decides to remain in this position until the storm inside him completely subsides. The boy's mind desperately resists. By all the laws of logic, he should have a completely different body. However, the pop-up system window stubbornly claims that all indicators are absolutely normal. Park Han-yul frowns, remembering the recent events and the questionable potion he received from a strange acquaintance. Analyzing the cryptic lines of the text, he puzzledly tries to decipher the phrase about the nourishing power of trees. At that moment, a sharp push from within makes him stop, and a saving warmth spreads through his chest. A wave of relief washes over me. It seems the poison's dangerous effects have finally come to an end. Park Han-yul comes to the conclusion that the composition of the elixir was transformed right during the scanning of his body. At the same time, news reports continue to flash on the holographic display. The president of a large corporation is staring at him from the screen, talking about something important. Park Han-yul glances at the broadcast, noting the speaker's tense face. Flashes of memories take the mind back to those distant eras when the world was inhabited by ferocious prehistoric monsters. Back then, fearsome beasts and mythical creatures shared space with the first martial arts masters. A special technique granted ancient warriors fantastic longevity, comparable to the longevity of the monsters themselves. Every blow they struck was imbued with primal energy, and their fighting style combined ferocity and grace. At the same time, mystical barriers held back the onslaught of evil spirits, weaving the power of nature into protective patterns. Complex geometric spheres accumulated cosmic energy, concentrating it into a pure flow. This fragile balance between ancient forces and modernity continued to exist right in the middle of a bustling metropolis. Even an insect at the most in basic scenes degenerate in passes. Security reports are constantly broadcast from screens, but real change happens in silence. Park Han-yul sits in the middle of his modest room, immersed in virtual space. A beep announces the completion of an unusual download. The systems of ancient practices are being integrated into digital form. Park Han-yul turns around sharply, noticing holographic interfaces materializing in the air. He looks around in confusion, trying to understand what strange hologram has disrupted the usual order. The interface clearly demonstrates a diagram of the human body with 3 energy centers. Carefully studying the projection, Park Han-yul immerses himself in the essence of the technique revealed to him. The virtual instruction explains the key principle. It is necessary to awaken warmth in at least one of the points. Park Han-yul mutters thoughtfully to himself, digesting the information he received. He settles himself more comfortably, raising an eyebrow skeptically at the absurdity of what is happening. The guy chuckles at his own thoughts, reflecting on how far he has gone with his experiments. Gathering her courage, Park Han-yul closes her eyes and takes a deep breath, following the instructions. The system once again displays a diagram of the centers, as if reminding us of the importance of every detail. The air around him begins to thicken, filling with a soft, almost tangible greenish glow. Park Han-yul concentrates entirely on her breathing, shutting out the outside world. A sudden, sharp jolt interrupts the meditation. The room literally explodes with lush vegetation. The guy looks in shock at the shoots entwined with personal belongings and empty jars on the floor. He tries to push away the roots that have flooded the room, not believing his own eyes. In an attempt to escape the chaos, Park Han-yul heads for the exit, complaining about his battery draining. Looking around, Park Han-yul frantically searches for any landmark to help him understand the scale of the disaster. The digital display on the wall mercilessly confirms my worst fears. Time has not only flown away, it has evaporated. Park Han-yul's face distorts as he realizes the shocking truth. Could it really have been like this all along? Coming back to reality, Park Han-yul is relieved to find that basic amenities are still functioning. However, the oddities don't end there. Despite the passage of days, his body shows no signs of exhaustion. Park Han-yul looks at his hands with disbelief, noticing with amazement that over such a long period of time he has not only not given up his position, but has even grown stronger. Meanwhile, the gadget comes to life, and Park Han-yul decides to satisfy his curiosity, although his intuition already whispers about a catch. Memory helpfully offers a terrifying picture of that very moment when the familiar world collapsed overnight. As soon as Park Han-yul looked outside, a monstrous barrier appeared before him, sealing the streets into a giant dome. Bewildered, Park Han-yul stands frozen by the broken window, trying to comprehend the nature of the sudden cataclysm. But a new tremor makes him shudder. Could this really be another earthquake? The eerie sounds from the street cut off any doubts, causing the blood to freeze in the veins from primal horror. Park Han-yul freezes, trying to suppress the panic that has taken over his mind. What the hell is going on outside his windows? Just one glance outside reveals a terrifying prospect. The city is overrun with terrifying creatures whose presence bodes ill. The monsters bare their teeth greedily, emitting a deadly red aura that exudes pure madness. Park Han-yul's face hardens, and his gaze reveals not just fear, but the cold calculation of a man driven into a corner. Meanwhile, a mysterious interface is activated in the room, projecting holographic data directly into the air. Park Han-yul methodically studies the projections, realizing that the standard explanations for what is happening no longer exist. Another touch of the flickering panels activates an unknown function, causing Park Han-yul to freeze in anticipation. Park Han-yul confidently manipulates the interface, expecting a quick and predictable result. But a sudden glitch makes him bite his lip sharply in growing irritation. The guy squints in disbelief, trying to figure out exactly when the system failed. Park Han-yul looks around nervously, feeling how the familiar world is starting to crack at the seams. A sudden roar fills the room, causing Park Han-yul to instinctively jump to the side. The realization hits like an icy wave. The magic of contracting has turned out to be frighteningly real. Park Han-yul freezes in confusion, feverishly putting together the fragments of the new reality. The guy's gaze falls on the holographic panels. Perhaps the answers are hidden there. Park Han-yul's mind frantically calculates the risks. The bright light will inevitably attract the monster's attention, although he himself would like to face them face to face. Park Han-yul narrows his eyes thoughtfully, noticing something curious in the data stream. A new tab pops up in front of him, promising to open access to secret techniques. Park Han-yul dives into studying the parameters, trying to formulate a strategy. The guy hangs in front of the screens, realizing the scale of the opening opportunities. Dark thoughts overwhelm him. Will he really have to wait a whole decade before gaining true power? Park Han-yul sighs heavily, mentally resigning herself to the inevitability of a long journey. Having gathered her courage, Park Han-yul decides to test her hidden reserves. Streams of greenish energy obediently fill the space around his hands. Park Han-yul smoothly extends his left hand, concentrating invisible power in one point. A sudden surge of power makes him freeze in surprise. Park Han-yul looks at her own palms in shock, not believing what is happening. Park Han-yul turns around sharply at the sound of the crash, and in the clouds of dust, something nightmarish appears before him. The monstrous, multi-eyed beast bares its fangs, filling the space with a terrifying growl. Panic gives way to concentration, and Park Han-yul frantically looks around the room, searching for any kind of weapon. His gaze falls on the treasured find, and a desperate smile lights up his face. Park Han-yul lunges forward, closing the distance in this deadly dance. The creature makes a lightning-fast attack, catching the guy off guard. The beast's sharp teeth sink into the flesh, and Park Han-yul chokes on a cry of pain. A bloody haze clouds his vision, but at that moment, something clicks in the guy's head. Greenish sparks flare up on the monster's head, awakening the system's hidden amusement. Park Han-yul desperately clasps his hands to the monster's head, summoning all his will. As if on command, the ancient magic of nature awakens in his hands. His skills activate, enveloping the enemy in suffocating and withering plant energy. Park Han-yul slams the creature into the floor with furious force, causing the beast to howl in pain. A powerful shockwave shatters the remains of the furniture, sending the monster crashing to the ground. The guy breathes heavily, standing over the defeated enemy, whose body begins to be enveloped in a mysterious glow. The energy of plants envelops the carcass of the beast, drawing the last of its juices from it. Park Han-yul feels an unknown power filling every cell of his body. Catching his breath after the fight, Park Han-yul realizes that it was his carefully chosen skill that saved his life. The adrenaline was still raging in his blood, causing Park Han-yul's eyes to glitter feverishly. The glow fades, leaving the boy alone with the silence and the aftermath of a brutal battle. Park Han-yul freezes, feeling a powerful stream of fresh strength flowing through her veins. The boy looks around in disbelief, realizing that the death of the monster has returned his lost vitality. This surge of energy came in handy. Now Park Han-yul can easily withstand the recoil after using the twisting wind. A sudden rustling sound makes Park Han-yul alert and turn to the fallen carcass. His eyes widen in surprise when he notices strange green growths on the monster's body. Just a minute ago, there was nothing here but lifeless flesh. Without thinking twice, Park Han-yul carefully collects unusual plants, intuitively sensing their value. The thought that this gift of nature has the property of acting only once on each opponent makes him act decisively. There are too many dangers lurking around, and Park Han-yul understands that if there is no time left to absorb the monster's energy in advance, it is better to avoid unnecessary skirmishes. But fate decrees otherwise, causing the guy to frown in anticipation of a new threat. An ominous growl comes from the dark corridor, causing Park Han-yul to turn around sharply. A blue monster with glowing eyes rushes at him in a furious attack, leaving no time to think. The beast's powerful blow catches Park Han-yul off guard, knocking the wind out of his chest and sending him flying backwards. However, the next moment, Park Han-yul clutches the treasured sprout in his hand, and the monster freezes in horror, faced with unexpected resistance. Using the secret inheritance technique, Park Han-yul puts all his accumulated power into the strike. Rage overwhelms him, and he unleashes all his anger at the stunned beast for the sudden attack. A deafening roar shakes the walls as Park Han-yul slams his opponent into the ground with a crushing punch. Without wasting a second, Park Han-yul turns sharply and rushes away from the enemy who is recovering. Using a stealthy maneuver, he quickly makes his way down the corridor while the monster tries to recover. The echoing footsteps follow him as Park Han-yul flies up the stairs, leaving the enraged beast far behind. The monster rushes into attack, trying to tear its prey apart in a jump. But Park Han-yul is not going to give up, and responds with a crushing blow right in the monster's face. From the powerful rebuff, the creature flies back with a groan, losing its balance. Taking advantage of the moment, the guy delivers another brutal uppercut, causing the beast to choke on its own pain. Park Han-yul rushes further up the stairs, hoping to escape his pursuers. However, around the corner an unpleasant surprise awaits him. New monsters are blocking his path. The only chance of salvation is to escape to the roof of the building. Throwing open the door, Park Han-yul runs out into the open space, breathing heavily and coughing from the dust. But the joy of salvation does not last long. What he sees literally makes his blood run cold. A gigantic, nightmarish mass of darkness and fear rises from the concrete floor right in front of him. The multi-headed monster opens its mouth, preparing to swallow the unfortunate man whole. Park Han-yul realizes that the situation is getting out of control, and panic begins to take over his mind. A huge creature looms over him, emitting a deafening roar that makes the earth shake. Without a second thought, Park Han-yul turns around and runs back as fast as he can. At that moment, his phone suddenly emits a strange signal, resonating with the surrounding space. A bright flash illuminates the roof as Park Han-yul raises his hand with the gadget in front of the enraged monsters. A powerful energy wave causes the animals to freeze in place in a stupor. Park Han-yul takes a deep breath, trying to comprehend what's happening, when suddenly, amidst the noise of the wind, a long-awaited human voice is heard, promising salvation. Throwing caution to the wind, Park Han-yul rushes towards the call, hoping to escape from this nightmare. A mysterious stranger, surrounded by ominous flames, suddenly lands in front of Park Han-yul. This strong-willed martial artist declares himself a fire Taoist and immediately asks why the guy moves without flying talismans. A slightly embarrassed Park Han-yul awkwardly admits that he only has 3 left in stock from the very beginning of the journey. Without wasting any time, the Taoist commanded him to extend his hand, brushing aside the danger behind him. But as soon as Paku tried to point out the threat, the gray-haired warrior interrupted him, demanding immediate submission. At that very moment, an enraged monster with glowing eyes emerges from the darkness, aiming straight at the magician's back. The Taoist didn't even blink, but simply lazily snapped his fingers, creating a whirlwind of fiery beads. A powerful burst of energy instantly throws the monster away, turning the dangerous trap into a springboard. The elder's imperious gaze falls once again on the confused boy. Park Han-yul, having weighed all the pros and cons, obediently extends his hand towards the saving fire. A mystical barrier picks them both up, carrying them high into the night sky above the metropolis. When asked about what is happening, the Taoist answers briefly and dryly, not wanting to go into unnecessary details. Park Han-yul sincerely thanks the savior for his help, but receives only a displeased snort in response. Suddenly, the flight is cut short by a sharp jolt, and Park Han-yul falls with a scream onto the hard surface of the roof. The phone screen is bursting with endless missed calls and disturbing messages from loved ones. The panorama of the city at night weighs on the mind with its scale and chaos. Park Han-yul peers into the distance, considering his next steps. Holding the phone to his ear, he maintains his usual calm. The conversation comes to an end, and the guy easily says goodbye to his interlocutor. Park Han-yul's confident gaze bodes ill for anyone who stands in his way. An ordinary conversation at the police station is interrupted by an unexpected question. Park Han-yul calmly accepts the offered glass of tea, but the atmosphere around her changes dramatically. The door swings open with such force that it makes everyone in the room flinch. A large man with a threatening expression on his face bursts into the room. The officer immediately hurries to introduce the uninvited guest. This is Na-hun-jun, a student of an influential master. The menacing visitor demands from the doorway that the interrogation be stopped, ignoring the police's confusion. His aura presses on those around him, causing the air in the room to literally warp with tension. Park Han-yul remains unperturbed even as Na-hun-jun looms over him like a heavy weight. The guest's rage reaches its peak. He cannot forgive the insolence of the one who disturbed the sleeping legendary master. But Park Han-yul only narrowed his eyes thoughtfully, assessing the enemy's strength without the slightest fear. An interface flashes before his eyes, confirming the high status of his interlocutor. Na-hun-jun demonstrates his power by relying on the authority of his ancient mentor. He speaks condescendingly of strict rules and hierarchy, where juniors are required to obey their seniors without question. Park Han-yul ironically asks the teacher's combat rank, barely hiding his grin. Kyun-jun's patience snaps. He instantly closes the distance and roughly grabs the guy by the collar. Coming close, he furiously reminds us of the unspoken laws of the spiritual world. The formidable fighter demands respect for traditions, threatening reprisals for any attempt to argue. However, instead of fear, Park Han-yul responds only with a sly and mocking smile. This reaction literally drives Na-hun-jun crazy with anger. But the cold-blooded Park Han-yul is ready to turn the usual rules of the game upside down. Looking incredulously at the strange device in his hand, the subordinate only blinked his eyes in confusion. But Park Han-yul isn't about to play by someone else's rules. His confidence is literally baffling. With a slight smirk on his lips, he asks just one question, which makes the atmosphere tense to the limit. The senior mentor is furious. His aura flares up in flames, ready to incinerate the impudent subordinate. The poor henchman hunches his head, shaking with fear under the hot wrath of the teacher. A fiery strike crashes down on the table, causing the walls to shake with the mentor's rage. How dare one who has mastered forbidden techniques show weakness before some upstart? But the frightened subordinate only weakly justifies himself by citing the enemy's enormous strength. The mentor frowns, trying to unravel this complex tangle of hidden truths. Anger takes over again, spilling out in a stream of flame and reproaches. A dangerous guess is born in his head. Perhaps it's all about the special structure of the body? After all, if ancient legends are true, each person has his own element hidden within him. Shouldn't the speed of its development exceed all conceivable limits? The mentor just coldly waves his hand, admitting his own ignorance. The image of energy flows, flashes before the eyes, illustrating the secret essence of the universe. Like an ancient blade forged in fire, this power requires perfect control. True hidden potential is revealed only to those who are able to hear the voice of nature. The senior mentor gives clear instructions, demanding absolute secrecy. There's a dangerous thrill in his gaze, and his puzzle only fuels his interest. Meanwhile, Park Han-yul continues to delve into the secrets of hidden abilities while sitting at his monitor. Park Han-yul's fingers hover over the keyboard, his thoughtful gaze catching the smallest details on the screen. The everyday world outside the window continues to live its hectic life, but Park Han-yul sees what is hidden from everyone else. Modern technology and ancient artifacts are intricately intertwined in his analytical mind. Ancient legends come to life before our eyes, revealing to the world the power of true deities and masters of the past. A powerful and wild energy fills the space, threatening to break out of control. Great warriors of the past clashed in grand battles, leaving their mark on history. An energy dome covers the entire city, hiding secrets from prying eyes. Next to them, the legendary Hong Ji-loon takes his rightful place in the chronicles. But Park Han-yul only grimaces skeptically assessing such comparisons. After all, putting cult heroes and ordinary characters in the same category is, to say the least, strange. Although you have to brew this strange drink to suit your own mood, friends share their modest successes in tests, unaware of the scale of what is happening. Park Han-yul himself only sighs heavily, faced with a wall of silent refusals on the network. The official databases are silent, as if someone had carefully cleaned up all traces. It is obvious that mere mortals are denied access to true information. But this only piques Park Han-yul's professional curiosity. Fingers fly over the keys again, speeding up the pace of the search. Memories of that fateful night in the rain come back to me with frightening clarity. The sudden realization leaves Park Han-yul frozen in complete amazement. Memory takes him back to the moment of the fight, revealing the true scale of what happened. In his open palm rest strange seeds, emitting a barely noticeable soft glow. Park Han-yul looks thoughtfully at the find, trying to remember where exactly he picked up these mysterious grains. However, the internet and search engines remain silent on this matter. The monitor screen is full of endless results for searches on medicinal herbs, but the answer I need is not among them. Suddenly, a strange, anonymous post with a scan of an old book catches my eye. The author of the publication claims that he has before him those very rare seeds capable of working miracles. Park Han-yul looks at the screen, and a daring and dangerous plan is born in his head. If those seeds have already sprouted on their own, what will happen if you push them by force? He decides to experiment with unprocessed grains when no one is looking. Once you apply the ancient solar wind-breathing technique, energy begins to circulate throughout the body. Park Han-yul goes into deep meditation, concentrating all her will on the tiny seeds. A special breathing technique fills his aura with a bright emerald glow. The seconds drag on painfully long as a colossal tension builds inside him. Park Han-yul's eyes widen sharply, exhaling heavily and intermittently, excess energy. Success. Right in his palm, the seeds instantly sprout vigorous green shoots. At that very moment, an enraged thug bursts into the room like a whirlwind, delivering a crushing blow into the void. Looking around, he is surprised to find that the room is empty. The uninvited guest angrily clicks his tongue and decides that the sly fellow has simply run away. He begins to rummage around the room, looking for any clues, muttering curses under his breath. Looking into one of the containers, the thug freezes in surprise. A mysterious artifact lies among the forest floor, ready to reveal its secrets. Park Hanyul goes into deep meditation, surrounding herself with a radiant energy field. His gaze clears, filling with determination and a thirst for new discoveries. Park Hanyul looks in surprise at the tiny sprout breaking through the soil. An incredible energy fills the space, causing the young tree to rapidly reach towards the sky. Park Hanyul freezes in amazement, barely believing the miracle happening before his eyes. A careful look captures the subtlest changes in the energy flows. Park Hanyul decides not to waste time and test his strength right here and now. A new wave of scarlet energy envelops the guy, pulsating in time with his breathing. Park Hanyul concentrates, directing her inner strength to reach a new level. Each breath becomes easier, dissolving fatigue and filling the body with power. Another attempt ends with a strange sound, causing Park Hanyul to blink in confusion. Have we really completed the first stage? A familiar number appears on the counter. Park Hanyul tries again, holding her breath. But instead of the expected breakthrough, only a comical cloud of steam appears above his head. Looking at the tiny shoot in her hand, Park Hanyul frowned skeptically. Where can we look for this mythical remedy if all this sounds more like a fairy tale? Park Hanyul closes her eyes again, tuning into the right wave. A flash of scarlet light reflects in his eyes, foreshadowing an unexpected outcome. Control over the new power is getting better, but there are still so many mysteries ahead. Park Hanyul delves into the subtleties of energy flows, comparing the properties of the elements. His sharp mind instantly builds logical chains, turning theory into practice. The seeds are transformed by the influence of Qi, hinting at the hidden potential of hidden techniques. It is as if an invisible mentor behind his back guides every moment of inner insight. Park Hanyul lunges forward, testing her newfound agility. Assessing the situation, he decides to take with him a curious artifact of plant origin. With one confident movement, Park Hanyul uproots the young tree. A sudden, sharp sound cuts through the silence, causing Park Hanyul to flinch in surprise. An emergency alert on his smartphone screen instantly grabs his attention. Panic reigns all around. Passers-by run through the streets in terror, discussing the terrible threat. The sky is covered with leaden clouds, and a powerful downpour falls on the city. Upon reaching the shelter, Park Hanyul encounters frightened people at the entrance. Giant earthworms wriggle underfoot, instilling superstitious fear in others. Park Hanyul maintains an icy calm, warning his companions of the danger without unnecessary panic. Suddenly, the air around them trembles and a shimmering veil of protective barrier appears in their path. Park Hanyul freezes, staring at the strange glow with genuine interest. From the darkness comes a desperate cry for help, full of mortal horror. A creepy monster with a long snake tongue appears from the darkness in the rain. A monstrous bird with glowing red eyes looms over its defenseless victim. The monster's grin does not bode well for those trapped inside. Cold sweat takes your breath away as reality surpasses any nightmare. A monstrous silhouette rises above the ground, exuding an eerie aura. The unfortunate woman begs for mercy, clinging to the wet asphalt while the predator prepares for reprisal. Park Hanyul watches the tragedy unfold with bated breath. The victim's desperate cries are drowned out by the noise of the downpour, and the monster is already taking the decisive step. Giant claws close on the prey, leaving no chance for escape. The next moment, the unfortunate woman is carried away into the darkness, thrown to be torn apart in a dark abyss. She finds herself at the bottom of a sinister trap, surrounded by writhing tentacles. Meanwhile, the monster turns its predatory gaze to the other witnesses. The remaining survivors are horrified to realize how close they came to death. The sudden aroma of tobacco smoke breaks the deathly silence of the nightmare. Park Hanyul calmly takes a drag on his cigarette, shielding the frightened people with his body. Hidden madness breaks out through the dark patterns on the skin. Tensions reach their peak when Park Hanyul decides to intervene in the unequal fight. A massive branch rises into the air with a furious whistle. A powerful blow falls on a creature's head, causing the monster to shudder in pain. The monster loses its balance and collapses to the ground from the crushing force of the attack. Dust and debris fly in all directions, leaving the enemy defeated. An ominous silence reigns beneath the sound of the rain, interrupted only by drops of water. Park Hanyul looks forward with a confident smile, ready to protect those in need. Or does the power lie in the very herb of purgatory that was consumed earlier? Raindrops hit the skin mercilessly, mixing with cold sweat. Park Hanyul looks up to the sky, realizing the strangeness of this downpour. This mysterious rain seems to nourish the very essence of plants. It fills them with unprecedented energy, causing them to grow at an incredible speed and making them significantly stronger. At this moment, Park Hanyul realizes that his abilities are capable of much more than he thought. Rain becomes a catalyst for improving the artifact. In his hands, the branches begin to rapidly change, emitting a dull, crackling sound under the influence of a mystical force. And from an ordinary branch, a formidable exorcist blade is born, cutting through even the darkness itself. Park Han-yul takes a decisive step forward, brandishing his newfound weapon towards the approaching threat. The monster lets out a piercing screech, ready to tear apart anyone who dares to stand in its way. A giant creature with bloodshot eyes dives straight at him. The monster concentrates destructive energy, preparing to unleash it on the enemy. But Park Han-yul has no intention of retreating. With a sharp movement, he closes the distance. His blade cuts through the air, meeting the monster's furious onslaught. A flash of energy blinds everything around as the blade meets the monster's fury. Park Han-yul freezes for a moment, holding his ground under the powerful onslaught. In one swift movement, he delivers a crushing blow, causing the enemy to stagger. The sharp blade rips through the air, catching up with the target and forcing the monster to retreat under a flurry of attacks. In close case, Park Han-yul breathes heavily, trying to comprehend what is happening in this crazy chaos. A shining exorcist blade, emitting an otherworldly aura, strangely materializes in his hands. The monster freezes for a moment, clearly surprised by the sudden change. Park Han-yul notices a strange detail. The monster is staring hypnotically at the weapon, but there is no time to think. The creature quickly changes its trajectory. At this moment, mortal danger looms over another random victim trying to crawl away from the tenacious tentacles. The look of horror, distraught, reflects the full scale of the impending catastrophe. Park Han-yul closes the distance with lightning speed, putting all her strength into a desperate dash. A slashing blow from the blade cuts through the air directly above the head of the frightened man. A powerful shockwave throws the poor guy into the air, knocking the last of the air out of his lungs. Park Han-yul manages to catch the falling man, taking the blow himself. Barely maintaining his balance, he hastily retreats under the ferocious roar of the enraged beast. The monster lets out a terrible scream, ready to tear the insolent fellow to pieces. Every movement of the beast is filled with primal rage and bloodlust. Park Han-yul makes a swift maneuver, shielding the rescued girl with her body. The creature's giant paw flies by within centimeters, destroying everything in its path. At the last moment, Park Han-yul manages to dodge, dragging his companion to a safe zone. They crash into the abandoned building, shattering glass and leaving a web of cracks in their wake. The strength leaves Park Han-yul's body, and his heavy breathing betrays the colossal tension. Leaning on the blade, Park Han-yul realizes with relief that serious fractures were avoided, but the effect of the life-saving stimulant is coming to an end. Every second counts, and Park Han-yul understands this very well. A huge shadow obscures the light of the lanterns as the monster rushes into another attack. The beast's mad grin reveals only a thirst for blood and destruction. But instead of panic, only cold, calculating excitement flashed across Park Han-yul's face. The monster lets out a piercing screech, unaware that it is trapped by its own anger. Park Han-yul's gaze becomes even sharper, as if time is slowing down. Every muscle is tense to the limit, and adrenaline is boiling in the veins. In one smooth motion, Park Han-yul raises the weapon, which absorbs static electricity discharges. The blade flashes with a blinding light, turning into a deadly conductor of energy. Surrounded by a sparkling dome, Park Han-yul waits for the perfect moment to counterattack. The explosive impulse carries him into the air, straight towards his stunned enemy. The monster flies into the building's facade, shaking the concrete with a powerful blow. Sharp steel cuts through the air, leaving behind a bright, shining trail. The exhausted monster convulses, losing control of its body. A bright flash of pain pierces the creature as lightning pierces through it. A powerful thrust makes the giant shudder from the unexpected power of the enemy. Park Han-yul rises above his opponent, preparing to deliver the finishing blow. Park Han-yul is overcome with rage, turning every attack into a crushing sentence. The massive body of the monster collapses lifelessly to the ground, under the astonished gaze of the survivors. The townspeople, frozen with horror, can hardly believe their eyes as they look at the lonely figure of the victor. Witnesses to the incident can hardly believe what they saw, filming the events on shaky smartphone cameras. Park Han-yul stands calmly over the fallen monster, as if challenging the city itself. Like a shadow gliding through chaos, he rushes to the aid of a random victim. The camera captures his silhouette amidst the raging elements, recording every step of the mysterious savior. A sudden blast of fire hits the hero, causing him to recoil under the sights of the cameras. The enraged magician blocks his path, spitting out curses and accusing him of the gravest crime. The killing of a sacred bird belonging to an influential person will not go unpunished. Park Han-yul is defeated and thrown into the ruins of a destroyed building, surrounded by flames. Stunned and wounded, he can barely stand on his feet under the rubble of concrete. News of the daring hero instantly spreads across the internet, capturing the screens of every smartphone in the city. Every passenger on public transport is discussing the sensational video that has gone viral. Meanwhile, in the luxurious edema, a question full of anxiety about the pet's fate sounds. Lady Yunhua stands frozen by the panoramic window, absorbing the gloomy atmosphere of the night city. The maid cautiously reports to her mistress about the capture of the impudent intruder. The mistress's anger is growing. Simple confinement is clearly not enough for this impudent guy. Lady Yunhua turns around abruptly, clutching her fan in her hand with a cold glint in her eyes. The devoted maid tries to soften the blow by reminding him of the impudent young man's incredible popularity online. The tension in the spacious hall reaches its peak as the maid awaits the verdict. A sinister, anticipatory smile appears on Lady Yunhua's face. The mistress's icy voice demands that she voice a plan that can satisfy her rage. Hearing the daring plan, Lady Yunhua breaks into a bloodthirsty grin, anticipating the imminent reprisal. Meanwhile, the heavy raindrops begin to subside, washing away the traces of the recent storm. The owner of these places is sure that the ruler of the underwater kingdom will only be glad of the death of the unwanted boy, not worth his father's tears. But now her thoughts are occupied with a much more important goal, that very artifact for which everything was started. She carefully unfolds the fabric, revealing the treasured relic. Finally, this ancient artifact was in her hands. The woman's gaze falls on the city blocks, drowning in the evening haze. From that moment on, the balance of power in the region would change forever, and the name of Yunhua would be heard louder than the name of the previous ruler. Park Han-yul strolls carefree through the busy city alleys, attracting the occasional glances of passers-by. The guy is clearly enjoying the walk, not suspecting anything. At that moment, a stern mentor's commanding voice is heard behind him, bringing the fugitive back to harsh reality. The stranger in the formal suit continues to scold the offender, setting the tone for the entire evening. Meanwhile, Park Han-yul finds himself once again in the middle of a busy street, lost in the crowd of people rushing about their business. He pauses for a moment, looking thoughtfully at the strange spark that has escaped from his fingers. And on the other side of the city, among the gloomy ruins, clouds gather over a lonely figure. Park Han-yul carefully examines the monstrous remains of the fallen creature, feeling the cold breath of an approaching threat. In his hands appears a mysterious package, emitting a strange glow. The boy turns the find over in confusion, wondering why this object was tied to a bird's leg. A sudden look of apprehension crosses his face as the pieces begin to come together. Wait, have they really been on the wrong track this whole time? A moment ago, everything seemed clear, but now reality is cracking at the seams under the impact of a terrible epiphany. At this very moment, a mysterious power is revealed in the palms, emitting a golden glow. It's as if the universe itself suggests an answer to the threat looming over the city. And while the situation is escalating to the limit, some people are watching what is happening with undisguised interest. Meanwhile, those who prefer to remain in the shadows, controlling events from afar, come into play. The atmosphere in the establishment is heating up, causing casual visitors to become tense. Someone is no longer hiding their irritation, wincing from the tension in the air. The owner's anger boils over as the situation threatens to get out of control. Park Han-yul watches her smartphone screen closely as a new drama unfolds. In a spacious university auditorium, students are immersed in their devices, unaware of the approaching storm. Park Han-yul casts an appraising glance at what is happening, maintaining an outward calm. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure appears before those gathered, ready to announce the rules of the game. A stern voice rings out in the silence of the audience, demanding absolute seriousness. A sudden outburst disrupts the usual flow of the meeting, causing everyone present to hold their breath. Park Han-yul leans back demonstratively, as if defying the general panic. The tension in the room reaches its peak when the uninvited guest crosses the line. The conversation takes a dangerous turn, blurring the line between joke and threat. The shadow of the past looms over the audience, reminding them of the scale of the disaster. Park Han-yul interrupts the impudent speech with a sharp movement, reminding the presumptuous interlocutor of subordination. A predatory grin touches Park Han-yul's lips as he asks a question that could leave his opponent stumped. The interlocutor swallows with difficulty, unable to immediately find the right words. Memories of the carnage flash before my eyes, revealing the terrible truth about the true power of this world. In the spacious auditorium, tension reaches its peak when a brazen voice breaks the fragile silence. But her face is distorted with anger, and her eyes darken from the realization of her own powerlessness. Monstrous monsters are ready to tear apart anyone who challenges them posthumously. Deep underground, among a tangle of ancient roots, lies a cache of forgotten relics. Park Han-yeol demonstrates complete indifference to other people's ambitions, emphasizing her independence. The rage inside her boils with such force that her teeth begin to grind from suppressed rage. A commanding gesture destroys the opponent's last illusions, turning materials into fine dust. Park Han-yeol lazily brushes off the annoying attention, preferring solitude to further arguments. The empty auditorium is immersed in the cool blue of the deserted space. Only a few scattered papers remain on each desk, silent evidence of the recent storm. Meanwhile, in the depths of the forest, a rustling sound is heard as a long case falls into hands. The clasp unfastens, revealing the ancient weapon hidden inside. Legends come to life in the memory. Only one man was ever able to defeat the formidable creature with this relic. Park Han-yeol peers into the distance, contemplating his next move. Dark forces seem to be reaching out from the depths of centuries, trying to regain their lost influence on the blade. Energy pulses along the blade, filling the ancient metal with an ominous green glow. Park Han-yeol freezes for a moment as an invisible thread of fate brings him back to his past. In the lively neighborhood nearby, everyday life is in full swing, with everyone busy with their roles. Thoughts are feverishly swirling in my head, forming a single picture of strangeness. Memory helpfully slips in recent footage, full of inexplicable dynamics and hidden threats. And although all logical arguments scream to the contrary, reality turns out to be much harsher. A sudden sharp jerk makes the forest's silence explode with surprise. One swift turn and Park Han-yeol is already racing away, leaving behind only a trail of fallen leaves. The girl following him barely has time to comprehend what is happening, replacing confusion with determination. Her eyes flash with the excitement of a hunter ready to use his hidden trump cards. The speed of pursuit reaches its limit when secret movement techniques are used. The world around blurs into a swift vertical flow, where both figures merge with the green massif. But Park Han-yeol isn't going to give up so easily, pushing herself to the limit. Every step is taken with difficulty, and mystical talismans seem to lose their effectiveness against this agility. At some point, the chase becomes so unpredictable that the pursuer loses sight of the target. The green treetops hide the movement, leaving the pursuer completely bewildered in the middle of an empty clearing. A moment of confusion gives way to a dull irritation at the missed opportunity. Suddenly, a heavy step breaks the silence, causing one to freeze from an unexpected question. Park Han-yeol appears as suddenly as he disappeared, casually adjusting his hood with a slight smirk on his lips. His relaxed appearance contrasts with the tension of his opponent, who did not expect such a turn of events. Park Han-yeol's attentive gaze assesses the situation with his usual analytical composure. The tension reaches its peak, causing the girl to experience a bout of sticky fear. And just as the situation threatens to spiral out of control, Park Han-yeol unexpectedly hands over a gadget, changing the rules of the game. Park Han-yeol shows a message on the screen, causing a mixture of curiosity and anxiety in her interlocutor. Her gaze is fixed on the bright display in the guy's hands, and her heart begins to beat faster with a bad feeling. Park Han-yeol confidently brings the phone closer, as if presenting irrefutable proof. A soft click of the screen breaks the silence, causing the girl to freeze in anticipation of the worst. Her pupils dilate in shock, and a desperate thought flashes through her mind. Is this really true? Meanwhile, Park Han-yeol displays a digital map with detailed information, maintaining a feigned calm. They continue to walk side by side along the path, but the atmosphere between them becomes increasingly electric. Park Han-yeol gives his companion a searching look, asking a question that makes her flinch. The girl immediately bristles, not wanting to put up with such accusations. But Park Han-yeol only ironically notes the absurdity of the situation, when the lives of thousands depend on the inaction of the powers that be. His voice is cold and reasonable as he lays down his own conditions for help. At this moment, a thought strikes her companion, causing her to raise her head in unexpected inspiration. She glances sharply at her luggage, as if remembering something vital. Park Han-yeol watches with curiosity as the girl decisively picks up the case and hands it to him. There is a strange mixture of determination and hope in her eyes. After all, this is about the most important thing. Park Han-yeol is focused on checking the details on her phone while her companion is frantically sending a message to someone. A sudden flash of realization makes both of them look at each other sharply. Things are taking an unexpected turn. The interlocutor hastily explains that the situation has already reached a new level and is attracting everyone's attention. She enthusiastically tries to convince the guy that now is the time to prove himself, because no one will judge him. But a shadow of doubt appears on the girl's face again when the talk turns to the harsh restrictions of her leadership. Park Han-yeol looks around with a slight smile, like an old friend who has returned to his native land. The gaze shifts to the troubled waters of the river near Yoinaru, where the very breath of the city seems poisoned. A tense argument flares up between confused companions on the stone embankment. The companion in uniform indignantly tells the others that what is happening here is not a walk at all, but his comrade tries to reason with him, reminding him of the main purpose of their dangerous visit. The masked girl glances at Park Han-yeol with worried confusion, wondering what he has in mind. Meanwhile, Park Han-yeol silently approaches the very edge of the gloomy embankment. He pulls the protective mask off his face, sniffing in disgust at the suffocating stench. In his hands appears a strange mass of earth full of green shoots. Suddenly, Park Han-yeol takes off, and his companion calls out to him in horror, warning him of danger. As soon as he touches the water, the sprouts held in his palm are instantly transformed, filled with pure radiance. The girl freezes in surprise, not believing her own eyes. A bright turquoise glow spreads across the water's surface, enlivening it with a mysterious power. The companion watches in surprise as Park Han-yeol confidently removes the protective mask. She recognizes the unusual plants as water hyacinth, which is ideal for purifying water. But Park Han-yeol says this is just the beginning, and the most important thing is yet to come. At that moment, the crimson waters rise up, and a colossal monster with burning eyes rises from the depths. Park Han-yeol resolutely draws his blade, ready to rush into battle. A powerful blow cuts through the air, leaving behind a multicolored trail of energy. A blinding flash illuminates the battlefield, causing the monster to howl in horror and pain. An ominous roar fills the air as the enraged beast unleashes its might upon its foe. Park Han-yeol calmly dodges the devastating attack, gracefully maneuvering through the bursts of crimson energy. Using incredible speed, he makes a swift leap, closing the distance. Every step he takes is accompanied by flashes of pure energy, cutting through the dense veil of chaos. The monster rises above the waves, trying to crush the impudent youth from above. But Park Han-yeol only grinned confidently, concentrating his strength in his hand. A powerful blast of energy hits the monster directly, sending it flying backwards. The beast's fury reaches its limit, his eyes become bloodshot with anger. Darkness thickens over the battlefield, swallowing up sound and the tension before a new storm. Another series of explosions shakes the space, inflicting painful injuries on the creature. The monster chokes with impotent rage, spewing curses at the impudent enemy. At this moment, the protective barrier takes on the most powerful blow of the elements, protecting people on the shore. She watches what is happening in amazement, realizing the scale of the changes taking place. Park Han-yeol moves across the battlefield with lightning speed, leaving the monster no chance to catch his breath. But the monster suddenly changes tactics, forcing the guy to retreat abruptly. Park Han-yeol, having received an unexpected rebuff, loses his balance for a moment. He falls into the water, taking the rest of his equipment with him. Along with him, mysterious glowing spheres rush into the abyss. When touched by water, these mysterious seeds instantly germinate. Vibrant lotus flowers bloom before our eyes, transforming the once gloomy waters of the river. Park Han-yeol soars rapidly above the water's surface, leaving a shining trail behind her. Like an illusionist preparing his final trick, Park Han-yeol pulls out his final hidden trump card. Energy swirls into a deadly vortex, filling the air with tension before the decisive blow. One precise throw, and the deadly blade cuts through space, rushing towards the giant monster. A monstrous roar shakes the area as the attack hits its target with incredible force. Park Han-yeol watches with cold blood as the defeated monster loses control. The water explodes into fountains of energy, and the giant creature collapses under the onslaught of the elements. A satisfied smile touches Park Han-yeol's lips because everything is going exactly according to his plan. But it's too early to relax. The destructive energy of lightning is once again gathering in his hands. Park Han-yeol makes a sharp lunge, directing a powerful discharge into the very depths of the water element. A blinding flash shoots across the river, turning the battlefield into a seething cauldron of electricity and fire. The monster shudders from the crushing blow, not even having time to understand the reason for its defeat. On the shore, observers stand transfixed, realizing the scale of the turning point that has occurred. A distinct smell of burning wafts across the surface of the water. The battle is over. The defeated giant sinks helplessly to the bottom, dissolving in the transparent turquoise water. Park Han-yeol glances at his handiwork, lightly wiping the sweat from his forehead. However, the guy immediately sighs with annoyance, assessing the scale of the consequences. The destruction of the threat has attracted too much unwanted attention, and Park Han-yeol understands the gravity of the situation. In the shadowed hall, the voices of those who watch the test from the shadows echo, discussing hidden potential. Park Han-yul examines the trophy he has acquired, a mysterious glowing sphere that turns out to be smaller than he expected. A warlike aura cuts through the silence, and a heavy, oppressive tension hangs in the air. Park Han-yul watches the scene calmly, rolling the mysterious sphere between his fingers. The glowing energy flares brighter, and strong demonic chains begin to coil around the boy. A mighty thrust carries him upwards while the enraged opponent spews curses. Before us appears the Heavenly Wolf King, one of the 8 sacred deities of the Korean peninsula. A holy horror grips the companions when they realize the true identity of the guest who has appeared. Even in Park Han-yul's thoughts, a shadow of daring anticipation flashes before him in the face of such a formidable opponent. However, fear of the divine being causes the companions to instantly change their anger to respectful servility. A quick bow and a helpful greeting should smooth over the sudden appearance of a formidable force. But even at this moment, nerves are on edge, and the slightest movement can provoke a catastrophe. The authority of the incomprehensible master forces even those who are accustomed to dictating their own rules to remain silent. Rage contorts the deity's face, but Park Han-yul only grins carelessly in response. In his eyes, one can read only a caustic mockery of the pompous grandeur of the ancient entity. The warrior's ardor is shattered by the icy calm of a guy who has no intention of servility. Park Han-yul parries any attacks with frightening ease, never losing the initiative for a second. The system has already confirmed his correctness, leaving his opponents without a single compelling argument. The confidence in every word makes the uninvited guests feel caught red-handed. An anxious whisper runs through the ranks of the retinue, undermining their ironclad confidence. Park Han-yul points out the obvious discrepancy, driving the presumptuous deities into a mental dead end. Perfect timing reveals the true motives of those who came only to take the fruits of someone else's victory. A slight, barely noticeable smile touches the corners of Park Han-yul's lips, driving the presumptuous celestials crazy. The enemy's smug mask is cracking at the seams, giving way to wild, undisguised rage. The tension reaches its limit when, under the powerful pressure of the aura, the air around literally begins to melt. The self-proclaimed judge resorts to threats, confident that fear is the best argument in any dispute. The retinue whispers in fear, shocked by the ease with which the enemy demonstrates his destructive power. Amidst the rising dust, Park Han-yul suddenly doubles over in a fit of hacking coughing, creating the illusion of his own vulnerability. But behind this apparent weakness lies a predatory gleam in the eyes, and absolute control of the situation. With one sharp breath and a swift movement, he takes the initiative back into his own hands. Those around freeze in shock, not believing their own eyes and holding their breath from the approaching horror. The wrath of the Supreme Being spills out, calling to life the menacing face of a multi-faced deity. The face of the arrogant imaginary god is distorted in a fit of rage from his own helplessness. Park Han-yul only calmly parries the attacks, reminding them that he is clearly not the one who is going to panic. A flash of destructive energy condenses into a deadly ball in the hand of a frenzied opponent. A ferocious leap from above was supposed to put a decisive end to this protracted fight. But Park Han-yul's calculations once again prove flawless. The blow cuts only into empty space. Maneuver follows maneuver, and the guy's face only shows boredom at the enemy's predictability. A crushing force falls upon the earth, leaving behind only smoking craters and fear in the eyes of the retinue. The dispelled illusory barrier makes the imaginary ruler turn around sharply in bewilderment. Park Han-yul has already materialized behind his ally, demonstrating perfect teamwork and complete superiority. A high-ranking, ghostly immortal of the 3 heavenly kingdoms, Pun Baek, appears before them. His cold gaze instantly finds the intruders, and tension hangs in the silence. He makes a condescending remark, trying to hurt their pride and show his own superiority. Park Han-yul only smirked in response to the empty threats, not losing his composure for a second. Their invisible mental connection allows them to act in sync, getting ahead of any enemy plans. The surrounding landscape is blurred by their rapid movements as they change positions. Inside the spacious complex, hidden life rages, and shadows watch closely. They find themselves in a magnificent inner garden, where every bush and flower breathes mystical energy. Pun Baek frowned in disbelief, trying to understand how exactly they had predicted his appearance. Park Han-yul took the initiative in the conversation, masterfully throwing his opponent off balance emotionally. The immortal's imperturbable facade begins to crack under the pressure of such daring behavior. Park Han-yul, however, remains absolutely calm. radiating the confidence of a predator. He accepts his opponent's advice with a slight smile, turning the situation to his advantage. Park Han-yeol's mind is filled with painful memories of past clashes and mistakes. But now he has calculated every possible step and does not intend to allow himself to be caught off guard anymore. The door opens, revealing a luxurious interior full of hidden threats. This world is full of dangers, but Park Han-yeol is ready to face any of them head-on. In a spacious hall, among exquisite screens and servants, a new intrigue unfolds. The imperious mistress of this place looks at what is happening with a mysterious and dangerous half-smile. Park Han-yeol gives her the same mischievous look because the game is just beginning. Rumors of the mysterious garden were circulating everywhere, but Park Han-yeol knew that there was always more to the beautiful legends. With a slight smile on his lips, he steps forward, fully aware of the dangerous adventure he is getting into. And here he is, standing at the foot of the throne room, face to face with the powerful mistress of these places. The maid silently steps forward, bringing on a fine tray what all this was for. On the silk fabric lie the rarest seeds of the herb of purgatory, a treasure that can bring fabulous profits or certain death. Park Han-yeol accepts the tray, eyeing the merchandise that could be his ticket to the next level. Ms. Yunhwa's gaze burns right through me, but it doesn't reflect anger so much as the cunning interest of a predator who has caught a funny mouse. Without waiting for questions, Park Han-yeol suddenly falls to the ground, acting out desperate remorse with his characteristic acting skills. He loudly laments, citing his hard life and hopelessness, hoping to move the formidable ruler to pity. Ms. Yunhwa condescendingly orders him to rise, enjoying the moment of absolute power over her guest. She reminds us of the gravity of his misdeeds with icy calm, masterfully building up the tension. But then the hostess suddenly changes her tone, declaring that she is again ready to forgive the impudent young man. Park Han-yeol freezes in surprise, not believing her luck and trying to figure out the hidden catch. The imperious mistress watches his confusion from the height of her throne, like a puppeteer pulling the strings. Park Han-yeol looks up, gathering his thoughts to plan his next line of defense. The garden's owner gently changes the subject to its amazing cultivation abilities, which have already caused quite a stir. She notes his success in cleaning the river and discusses the benefits he could bring to her personal estate. Park Han-yeol cautiously objects, citing the modesty of his talents and the limitations of his single technique. He honestly admits to his failures, explaining that no matter how hard he tried, the grass of purgatory stubbornly refused to grow. The ruler immediately seizes on his words, caustically noting that the guy simply lacks skill. Park Han-yeol just smiled softly, as if he was not the least bit hurt by this stinging attack. The ruler simply waves her hand, indicating that the conversation is over. She makes a regal gesture to the guy, showing complete superiority. Park Han-yeol silently accepts her conditions, maintaining an inscrutable expression on her face. He suddenly bows deeply, with the utmost politeness, thanking for such a generous reception, but a dangerous light flickers in his eyes, revealing the true thoughts of the cunning man. The ruler notices this change, and for a moment her confidence cracks. Meanwhile, another figure appears in the garden, whose appearance instantly changes the atmosphere. This is Jejongbi, whose name strikes terror into all the inhabitants of this place. She looks suspiciously after the departing guest, sharing her doubts with the ruler. In her opinion, this guy is acting too suspiciously, as if he was starting a dangerous game. Meanwhile, Park Han-yeol walks leisurely along the picturesque alleys, enjoying the moment. He looks completely relaxed, as if he were on a normal walk and not in the enemy's bosom. Jejongbi watches his every move carefully, never taking his wary gaze off the boy. She raises her finger to her head, hinting at the obvious oddities in the behavior of this impudent fellow. The girl openly calls him a psychopath, using a definition from the human world that she understands. She wonders why the owner even allowed him to cross the threshold, knowing about his bad reputation. However, the ruler only waves her hand reassuringly, not sharing her panic at all. There is a cold calculation in her voice. If this guest turns out to be useless, he will simply be used as fertilizer. To the light laughter of the ruler, Jejongbi thoughtfully scratches the back of his head, admitting his defeat in this argument. However, doubts still plague her mind. Park Han-yeol walks confidently through the busy city streets, lost in his own thoughts. Carefully assessing his surroundings, the guy notices that the combat indicators of the local residents exceed the 300 mark, and if Lady Yunhwa and her entourage possess colossal destructive power, the solar wind technique, developed by Park Han-yeol to 10 stars, allows him to literally see the aura and true potential of any person. Even those who boast an impressive 600 points turn out to be not so flawless in reality. The smartphone in his hand vibrates quietly, urging him to make an important decision. Park Han-yul realizes that he intentionally underestimated his combat skills in front of Shin Saman, but if his rank has truly reached the mystical level of immortality, then his true power is capable of crushing any usual boundaries. Mighty waves of chi rise out of nowhere, sending cherry blossom petals flying into the air. The majestic tree blossoms in full force, resonating with the awakening energy. Park Han-yul turns around, feeling the space around her fill with a mystical awe. A mysterious shining sphere materializes in his hand. This legendary Chintamani is an artifact of the ruler of the Han River himself. Kneeling at the roots of an ancient tree, Park Han-yul decides to take an unexpected step. The artifact's glow envelops the branches, awakening the hidden magic of nature. Park Han-yul's face is filled with the sly, satisfied smile of a player who always has an ace up his sleeve. Enveloped in a protective cocoon of energy, he soars above the ground in a meditative flight. Every cell of his body absorbs concentrated spiritual power. A sharp breath brings the guy back to reality, causing his eyes to widen in sudden insight. Park Han-yul notes to herself that regular meditation under this mysterious tree brings amazing results. His gaze falls on a tiny peach that is not yet ripe. The thought of trying an unusual delicacy makes him swallow his saliva. Fingers gently touch the branch, ready to pluck the treasured gift. But at the last moment, Park Han-yul suddenly freezes, feeling someone else's gaze on her. Turning around, he discovers a very unexpected guest who has been watching him all this time. The little bear in traditional costume looks unusually menacing and important. They freeze opposite each other in the middle of the sun-drenched greenery. The spirit of Mount Guanik makes a pompous cough as he decides to break the silence. Park Han-yul responds with a light, non-committal smile. However, this funny guardian clearly has power that can compete with any master. A place filled with ancient mysticism, it holds many secrets and living legends. Nearby stands a statue of an ancient guardian, protecting the peace of these protected lands. The clear waters of the southern pond stretch around, creating a perfect balance of the elements. Next to the imposing spirit, Park Han-yul seems even more relaxed and unperturbed. The mountain guardian reproachfully declares that he has no intention of indulging the endless whims of a mortal in training. Park Han-yul casts a sly glance at his interlocutor, continuing to hold the branch. The spirit screams in panic that the fruit must not be picked. All the pure energy of the tree is concentrated in it, and without this protection, the barrier will collapse. Park Han-yul looks at the enraged keeper with genuine bewilderment, as if offended by such distrust. The guardian beats his paws in the air, trying to reach the conscience of the impudent youth. The poor spirit finally loses his composure, clutching his head in animal terror in the face of the impending catastrophe. Meanwhile, Park Han-yul casually surveys the surroundings, noticing strange vibrations in the heart of the ancient forest. The surrounding space is filled with an ominous purple glow, distorting reality itself. Park Han-yul watches in fascination as the purest and most powerful yin energy emanates from the mysterious object. The guardian points his finger at the sky in despair, trying to reach the common sense of this carefree, impudent fellow. But Park Han-yul only thoughtfully puts her finger to her chin, immersed in her own associations. A crazy parallel with the classic legends of the immortal peaches from Journey to the West immediately arises in his mind. However, the spirit abruptly interrupts his fantasies, reminding him of a much more real and deadly threat. Park Han-yul feels powerful waves of mysterious power begin to emanate from the sacred tree. The forest guardian clenches his fists, determined to protect this place at any cost. He vows to restore his lost strength and stand up for the sacred tree. But while the defender is making pompous speeches, Park Han-yul is already unceremoniously picking the coveted fruit. A guilty but completely incorrigible smile blossoms on Park Han-yul's face. The enraged keeper bursts into tears as he watches this insolent fellow shamelessly gobble up the legendary treasure right before his eyes. The bear freezes in complete stupor, unable to comprehend the logic of this unpredictable guy's actions. Legendary figures from the past come to mind, the Monkey King himself and the sage Dongfang Shuo. Park Han-yul watches with anticipation as the mystical fruit begins to take effect. The system instantly records the absorption of the reagent, starting the transformation process. The powerful energy of the immortal peach spreads throughout Park Han-yul's body in powerful waves. The shocked keeper only watches helplessly as the events unfold, completely speechless at the audacity of the new cultivator. The angry custodian immediately resorts to using his fists, trying to calm the insolent guest, but Park Han-yul only thoughtfully reflects on the scale of the cultivation here. The guy philosophically discusses how ancient fruits require thousands of years to bear fruit, while a one-year-old tree is unlikely to produce anything grand. Park Han-yul continues cleaning serenely, picking up a stick, while the little spirit sputters in impotent rage. The tiny forest defender tries to protest his own powerlessness, but a sudden blow interrupts his angry tirade. A tiny sprout flies right into the enraged guardian's head, causing him to howl in resentment. Park Han-yul innocently shrugs, as if to say, since he can't help, why not have a little fun? The stunned keeper stares at the shining miracle that has ended up in his paws. A slight tremor runs through his small body, and tears roll down his cheeks from the realization of the incredible value of the gift. The baby touchingly presses the precious find to his chest, not believing his happiness. Park Han-yul generously pours a couple more shining shoots onto her plump paws. The guardian freezes in complete shock, unable to utter a word in response to such a generous offering. Park Han-yul smiles encouragingly, confident that this will be enough to restore the furry spirit's strength. A spark of determination lights up in the little boy's eyes, and he joyfully confirms his readiness to work. Park Han-yul tilts his head with interest, wanting to know what this unusual guard is capable of. And then the stunned spirit comes up with a brilliant business plan to save the world by selling shelters. Park Han-yul watches the enterprising little animal with a slight smile, apologizing for his bluntness. The guardian triumphantly raises his paw with the sprout, declaring his grandiose plan for the future. Park Han-yul thoughtfully closes her eyes again, returning to the gloomy reality. The baby begins to doubt whether such modest gifts can restore him to his former greatness. But there is no time to think, because the main threat is already getting very close. An unexpected call interrupts Park Han-yul's dark thoughts, causing him to instantly switch to the new notification. The blue system interface unfolds in mid-air, and Park Han-yul coolly remarks that this useful feature will save them a lot of headaches. The baby clenches his fists furiously, ready to run away at any moment. But a sharp rustle in the thick of the forest makes the whole company instantly alert. A flash of movement breaks the silence. Someone is rapidly closing the distance. Park Han-yul looks up, instantly assessing the figure that has appeared. An uninvited guest freezes on a stone ledge, bathed in mystical light. Park Han-yul peers closely at the familiar silhouette, her lips parted in slight surprise. The enemy breaks into a self-confident grin, clearly hoping to catch them off guard. An arrogant voice breaks the silence with a question. Has he really come here on the direct orders of his master? But the enemy has no intention of engaging in lengthy negotiations and, with theatrical pathos, snatches his treasure. Park Han-yul looks at the strange artifact with silent skepticism, its appearance causing only bewilderment. The braggart becomes even more incensed, declaring that the nine-tailed fox's fan is a legendary relic, unseen since ancient times. The baby on the branch freezes in awe, absorbing every word about the great power of the ancient spirits. Park Han-yul just listens to this stream of bragging in silence, maintaining absolute calm. The air nearby trembles, and the enemy calls upon all his power to suppress the opponent with his mere presence. Park Han-yul chuckles, watching the show with disbelief. The smug opponent spreads his arms, proclaiming the absolute impregnability of his barrier. He doesn't care about other people's techniques and shouts, because the magic shield seems completely impenetrable to him. The fanatic's confidence reaches its peak when he closes his eyes in triumph, anticipating an easy victory. At this moment, Park Han-yul realizes the full significance of what is happening. The enemy is using an artifact that contains the primordial power of 4 legendary creatures. Assessing the scale of the threat from afar, the boy understands that if this thing is capable of releasing such a colossal flow of energy, the consequences could be catastrophic. The self-proclaimed Chosen One explodes with rage, pointing a finger at the silence disturber and demanding that he stop his constant interruptions. Park Han-yul just thoughtfully puts her finger to her chin, sincerely wondering who this nervous guy is. But this scene suddenly has a crazy context, as if Providence itself suggests an analogy to the hero. Park Han-yul points to the funny teddy bear with a beaming smile, making a brilliant association. Isn't this the same Namawinki? The enemy completely loses his mind from such a mess. His aura flares up with a frightening blue flame, and absolute madness is visible in his eyes. He clenches his teeth until they grind, overcome with blind rage and contempt for the intruder. Enveloped in a mystical barrier, he mentally passes judgment. Now, this joker will bitterly regret his insolence. However, Park Han-yul remains icy calm because he has something in his arsenal that can turn the tide of the battle. With one smooth movement of his hand, he releases hidden energy, preparing to demonstrate all his agility. Images of a recent training session with Shin-saman come to mind when she decided to test his true potential. The air around instantly heats up from the collision of 2 disparate energies, raising clouds of green sparks. The bear cub on the branch freezes in anticipation of a grand spectacle. watching Park Han-yeol's preparations. Park Han-yeol quickly closes the distance, turning into a blurry shadow full of deadly grace. Every movement of the guy is imbued with a honed lightness, as if he is dancing on the blade of an invisible hurricane. His eyes flash with an ominous emerald light, betraying predatory calculation and fighting spirit. At that very moment, the enemy unleashes enraged blue wolves, woven from pure magic, onto the battlefield. But Park Han-yeol meets this onslaught with an unperturbed smile, putting all the accumulated wind force into the blow. The enraged beasts choke on the flow of energy, crashing against Park's unbreakable will, which proved far stronger than the fanatic's blind faith. Park Han-yeol freezes for a moment, pouring all the power of his will into the weapon. His gray-green eyes flash with a cold, calculating gleam. A flash of pure energy engulfs the blade, causing the air around it to tremble with tension. Even a local resident froze in horror on a branch, realizing the scale of the impending disaster. Park Han-yeol calmly assesses the situation, not allowing the enemy a single chance to catch his breath. With a light jump, he closes the distance, ending up exactly where he was least expected. With a slight grin, Park Han-yeol reminds the enemy of a simple rule: any attack will be answered for. But the arrogant enemy only grinds his teeth harder in impotent rage. The swing of a sacred weapon is full of blind arrogance and immeasurable arrogance. However, instead of triumph, his body is pierced by a terrible, destructive backlash. The artifact's energy literally devours the fool from the inside, causing him to choke in convulsions. Park Han-yeol sighs heavily as he watches this pitiful sight. In one smooth movement, he finds himself next to the defeated enemy. With slight disdain, Park Han-yeol notes that someone else's self-confidence has been shattered by harsh reality. The hand confidently rests on the shaft of the artifact, ready to harness its true power. The sacred object responds to the touch with a deep hum, recognizing its new owner. Park Han-yeol gazes thoughtfully at the shimmering shimmer of mystical power. Such power is capable of turning the world upside down, but in the hands of a young man, it becomes an instrument of true order. At that very moment, someone else's furious gaze cuts through the veil of space. The Fire Master appears on the horizon, ready to enter a new phase of this mad confrontation. Park Han-yeol doesn't even have time to catch his breath before a terrifying figure looms over him. The old man rushes towards the fallen fighter, picking up the limp body in his arms. His gaze reveals not just anger, but a primal fury capable of burning all living things. The surrounding air instantly heats up, giving way to a wall of raging flame. A sharp turn of the head, and the opponent aims his incinerating gaze at Park Han-yeol. Like a hurricane, Park Han-yeol quickly dodges the attack, cutting through the hot air with his weapon. Past grievances come to light when an enemy scornfully remarks about unfinished business from a year ago. In an instant, the flame around the master thickens, turning into a deadly weapon of pure energy. Park Han-yeol maintains an icy calm even though the heat around her reaches unbearable levels. An explosion of devastating force shakes the surrounding area, causing Park Han-yeol to fly into the air in a hail of fiery sparks. Without wasting a second, the master unleashes new spheres of destructive elements on the guy. Park Han-yeol rushes forward at breakneck speed to block the hot wave, using her last bit of strength to deflect the blow. Bright flashes illuminate the battlefield, where every clash threatens instant death. Park Han-yeol desperately parries attack after attack, barely holding back the onslaught of the ferocious enemy. Another powerful explosion throws the guy back, leaving behind only a trail of snow-white sparks. Park Han-yeol's heavy, ragged breathing betrays his colossal fatigue in this unequal battle. Leaning on the shaft, he gathers his last strength for a decisive response. But the enemy has no intention of slowing down, once again filling his hands with destructive fire. Suddenly, the mentor takes the initiative and shouts a hint, urging them to use the legendary fan. Park Han-yeol breathes heavily, digesting his ally's words and trying to comprehend the mysterious plan. The thought of a possible fatal mistake flashes through my head, but it's too late to retreat. Risk is a noble cause, and Park Han-yeol decides to go all the way. With one sharp movement, he swings the artifact, calling upon its hidden power. A bright flash illuminates the space, materializing ferocious, ghostly beasts. The enemy becomes furious, not believing his eyes and cursing the boy's insolence. The atmosphere becomes tense, forcing the opponent to make a countermove. The emerald spirits fall to the ground with a deafening roar. Park Han-yeol freezes in shock as she realizes the scale of the destruction. A powerful explosion shakes the area, turning rocks into flaming ruins. The dust clears, and the young man looks around, searching for any threat. The next moment, a deadly projectile pierces the air at incredible speed. Pain pierces through his body, knocking the air out of Park Han-yeol's lungs. He falls heavily to the ground, feeling the earth slipping away from under his feet. The sharp pain in the chest leaves no doubt that the internal organs are seriously damaged. The enemy emerges from the flames, showering the defeated one with taunts. Burning with anger, the enemy concentrates destructive energy for the final blow. Park Han-yeol glares at the impending doom. A firestorm descends upon the battlefield, leaving no chance for salvation. The guide tries with all his might to defend himself, taking a hail of blows on himself. A powerful impulse throws Park Han-yeol back, knocking the treasured artifact out of his hands. Park Han-yeol spits out blood from the monstrous force of the blow. He is thrown far back, right to the foot of the forest, engulfed in flames. The enemy clutches an enchanted rosary in his hand, emitting a terrible, deadly aura. Park Han-yeol clutches his bloody side, barely holding back a groan of pain. But suddenly streams of mystical energy begin to gently envelop his torn body. The warlike image of an ancient spirit appears for a moment through the veil of reality. The old man watches all this with his eyes, sensing the approach of inevitable defeat. Rage distorts the face of the formidable ruler of the underworld, but he already understands that he is lost. Park Han-yeol dives into the depths of his hidden reserves, achieving what he has been striving for so long. His eyes flash with an ominous crimson light, awakening the power hidden within. The old man realizes in horror the true nature of the awakened elements. How did this guy manage to master such a powerful technique? The attacker's face is distorted with wild anger and confusion. A blinding flash throws him away, wrapping his body in hot beads. Park Han-yeol towers over the battlefield, confident of his unexpected victory. He lightly touches his lips with his finger, tasting the triumph. The refreshing coolness of the water element instantly dispels the remnants of heat and pain. Park Han-yeol deftly picks up the mop, turning it into a formidable weapon. With one sharp movement, he unleashes a crushing wave upon the enemy. Streams of seething water carry the defeated enemy into the very depths of the elements. The incredible power of the water flow falls upon the battlefield, sweeping away everything in its path. The enemy is horrified by the devastating force of the attack, not believing his own eyes. At this moment, Park Han-yeol's companion tries to bring him to his senses with furious slaps. A stunned Park Han-yeol suddenly comes to his senses amidst the destruction. He rubs his eyes in confusion, trying to comprehend what is happening around him. Park Han-yeol's gaze falls on the raging streams of water that have flooded the entire area. From the heights of the cliff, the scale of the disaster becomes apparent. The defeated enemy is helplessly floating downstream. Park Han-yeol silently looks at the water element, digesting what happened. His faithful furry partner gestures indignantly, demanding immediate action. After assessing the scale of the destruction, Park Han-yeol realizes the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, the defeated enemy falls to the ground, unconscious, completely exhausted. Park Han-yeol carefully examines the defeated enemy, searching for something important. His gaze suddenly catches on a mysterious detail, attracting all his attention. In his hand appears a small, mysterious bag, emitting a strange aura. The partner immediately comments on the find, calling it an incredibly valuable item. Both agree that they can't stay here any longer. Park Han-yeol thoughtfully puts a finger to her chin, considering her next steps. The entrusted enemy continues to lie motionless on the wet ground. Without thinking twice, Park Han-yeol lifts his fallen opponent onto his shoulder and heads away. Good. Instead of ceremony, Park Han-yeol, without further ado, throws the unconscious body straight to the ground. The frightened companion immediately panics, reminding him that there is no time to waste, otherwise the enemies will reach the secret peach tree of immortality. But Park Han-yeol merely casts an appraising glance at the sacred plant, plotting something far more cunning. Concentrating, he calls upon hidden chi, forming an unstable sphere of pure energy in his hand. Like a master of an ancient art, Park Han-yeol activates the technique with lightning speed, imprinting the power directly into the ground. A powerful wave of energy covers the defeated Taoist, completely erasing the traces of the recent battle. At the same time, the protective field around the grove begins to shimmer, hiding the sacred branches from prying eyes. Nature responds to the spell. The tree's crown comes to life, causing the leaves to tremble under the streams of mana. Hundreds of glowing leaves fall to the ground in a smooth swirl, enveloping the enemy in a healing blanket. The metal beast freezes in amazement, watching as the ancient magic begins to work. The branches of the peach tree glow with a soft, enchanting light, foreshadowing an imminent miracle. Park Han-yeol easily jumps down from the branch, satisfied with the work done and how they made it in time. At this moment, the silhouettes of the search party flicker in the distance, and attention reaches its limit. Having narrowly escaped detection, Park Han-yeol watches with a slight smile as his enemies look for them in a completely different place. While the little animal is discussing the elements, Park Han-yeol is already calculating the much deeper secrets of the universe. The tree once again spread its branches, exuding awe and promising unprecedented strength. The interlocutors immerse themselves in a discussion of legends, because the true value of the fruits of immortality is hidden under the seal of centuries. Park Han-yeol listens to her own feelings, knowing full well that the rarest treasures reveal their potential only to a select few. The energy of water flows to his body, healing the wound and filling the boy with primal power. Assessing the magnitude of the hidden source, Park Han-yeol smiles with anticipation, wondering what kind of evolution this gift will bring him. While Park Han-yeol is lost in his own thoughts, a small furry creature appears behind him, looking at his new acquaintance with curiosity. The cute little bear peers timidly over the boy's shoulder, clearly gathering his courage for an important request. With an excited squeak, he begs Park Han-yeol to be his guide and show him the unknown surroundings. Park Han-yeol raises an eyebrow skeptically, as mountain deities shouldn't just wander around wherever they want, but the spirit immediately confidently declares a secret cloning technique. The guy thoughtfully calculates the energy costs in his mind, weighing the pros and cons of this idea. Meanwhile, the little boy, with tears in his eyes, complains about the ungrateful people who have completely stopped leaving offerings to the deities. The bear cub tenderly fawns over Park Han-yeol, hoping through him to once again touch the joys of the outside world. Park Han-yeol narrows his eyes slyly, considering the unexpected offer and deciding to make the most of this situation. He extends his hand with a sly smile, offering his new companion to seal the deal with a mutual exchange. The baby happily agrees and enthusiastically flies closer, handing Park Han-yeol his relic. Suddenly, an image of a wise mentor named Gwanek flashes through her mind, ready to teach her an important lesson. It reminds us of the formidable creatures of the spiritual world, whose strength and development are inherent in nature itself. These creatures possess not only wild power, but also unique artifacts that greatly enhance their combat potential. Park Han-yeol looks at the heavy club in his hands in surprise, wondering if he will be able to handle such a trophy. The bear cub explains that this is the mountain's greatest treasure, the loss of which instantly deprives its owner of half of his divine power. According to him, by taking possession of this object, one can completely subjugate the mountain spirit and force it to fulfill any whim. The slightly embarrassed animal immediately admits that he got the club completely by accident. Park Han-yeol weighs the artifact in his hand, assessing the opening prospects and finding the trophy quite useful on the farm. The happy spirit glows with joy, showering the guy with sincere thanks for the unexpected help. Park Han-yeol confidently throws his club over his shoulder, ready for new adventures in the company of his delighted companion. The city outside the window goes about its normal life, while the radio broadcasts about upcoming changes and a suspension of the Seoul Summit due to the upcoming New Year. The government has already put in place a special protocol for key figures to meet with representatives of the immortals. Passengers in the taxi excitedly share rumors about the mysterious reason for such a large-scale event. Park Han-yeol listens to the conversation, trying to catch a familiar name. However, officials are well aware of the seriousness of the situation and the inevitable consequences of such decisions. Park Han-yeol sits in the back seat, lost in his own thoughts. The sudden flow of thoughts is interrupted mid-sentence when the reality around begins to rapidly change. A flash of sharp fear pierces the guy's consciousness at the most unexpected moment. A yellow taxi screeches to a halt in the middle of the road, right in front of a lone, hooded figure. Park Han-yeol jerks upright in the car, trying to figure out what made the driver slam on the brakes so hard. His gray-green eyes widen in surprise at the sight of the intruder. A mysterious figure in a purple hoodie stops right in front of the car, emitting a strange aura. The stranger confidently approaches the car, attracting everyone's attention. The secret of her appearance clearly conceals something more than just a chance encounter on the road. Park Han-yeol gets out of the car, keeping a wary gaze on his unexpected companion. Her cold and focused look suggests that she clearly has no intention of joking. She briefly throws out a couple of phrases, setting the rules of the game for their further path. Behind the new acquaintance's outward simplicity lies a threatening force capable of forcing anyone to reckon with her. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Park Han-yeol instantly changes his tone and promises to be extremely careful. Looking at the phone screen, the guy gives a short command, ending the strange dialogue. A bright pop socket in the shape of a funny teddy bear suddenly finds itself in the spotlight, causing a storm of questions. Park Han-yeol turns around in confusion, trying to understand where this strange hint from his interlocutor is leading. After all, he declares with undisguised cunning that the guy has a weakness for impeccable male beauty. Park Han-yeol's eyes widen in complete shock. not believing her ears and struggling to find the words to respond. But memories take us back to the past, where we see Moon Doran, the son of the divine Moon Hexen, renowned for his sophistication. An ordinary worker has no idea what a fateful meeting awaits her on the quiet surface of the river. She freezes in place, dropping her burden, when an incredibly attractive young man appears before her eyes in all his glory. A powerful protective aura suddenly erupts around the frightened girl, causing the guy to jerk back. Park Han-yeol continues the conversation, still having difficulty digesting what she heard and questioning such incredible rumors. A strange voice from the phone makes the guy swallow nervously and make a frightened sound. Meanwhile, the majestic gates of the ancient estate swing open, revealing the veil of mystery of past years. But reality turns out to be much more comical. Instead of romance, the unfortunate young man is shaking with fear in front of an insistent admirer. Even under the stern gaze of the guards, the persistent girl continues to pursue the frightened tormentor with a flower in her hand. Suddenly, the atmosphere becomes tense, and the heroine, gritting her teeth from the rage that overwhelms her, decides to act. It unleashes colossal, destructive force, turning everything around into the epicenter of a mystical storm. A powerful explosion shatters buildings into pieces, and screams of horror merge with insane, triumphant laughter. This crushing blow went down in history under the frightening name, the Flower of Sura's Doom, leaving behind only mountains of defeated enemies. And returning to the comic scene, we see how the same heroine, with a burning heart, proposes to the frightened young man right in the middle of the petals. Surrounded by maids and luxurious gifts, she triumphantly tries on rich outfits, feeling like the mistress of the situation. Thus, the cunning father and son achieved their goal, having secured the full support of the influential Jeju Island. However, the moment of triumph is interrupted in the most unexpected way. The silence of the courtyard is broken by the whistle of approaching mortal danger. The shadows rush forward, drawing their blades in a deadly leap. A flurry of blades covers the space, leaving only ominous silhouettes in the haze. Surrounded on all sides, the bride freezes under the crossfire of strangers' gazes. A cold horror pierces her consciousness, paralyzing her will in the face of imminent death. But at this critical moment, her whole being is consumed by a furious rage. Like a wild animal cornered, she unleashes the storm hidden within. The heavens respond to her wrath with a blinding flash of lightning. A wild, frantic scream bursts from her chest, sweeping away everything in its path. A powerful wave of energy throws up stones and puts enemies to flight. Since then, legends about her indomitable power began to be told in these lands. She playfully deals with squads of mercenaries, like a storm sweeping away dry leaves. Even after defeating her opponents, she continues to tremble from the adrenaline that fills her. Every beat of her heart echoes in the space filled with blood-red flowers. The battlefield lies in ruins, strewn with the bodies of fallen enemies. Meanwhile, somewhere far away, Park Han-yeol continues his carefree journey, cutting through the air currents. The phone in his hand never stops ringing, delivering fresh portions of gossip. Park Han-yeol, with his characteristic serenity, reflects on what is happening, not even suspecting the scale of the tragedy that has unfolded. An unexpected call interrupts his thoughts, causing him to wince at the annoying interlocutor. She turns around in confusion at the sound, noticing Park Han-yeol, who is in no hurry to follow the rules of this strange place. The majestic gates of the ancient sanctuary seem to be sealed from the outside world by a powerful, invisible barrier. But Park Han-yeol continues to stand calmly on the steps, not even suspecting the threat lurking behind the massive doors. Suddenly, the tension dissipates. His companion demands that he go upstairs immediately, casting aside all doubts. They walk through the deserted courtyard of the temple, surrounded by an atmosphere of deep desolation and centuries-old peace. But as soon as their steps fade away at the entrance, the reality around them begins to rapidly change. A sharp wave of the hand, and space succumbs to an invisible influence, opening a passage to another dimension. Before Park Han-yeol can even blink, a powerful blow lands right on him. The world around instantly bursts into a blinding yellow flame, consuming everything in its path. His body falls limply onto the hot ground, disappearing into the thick haze of the fire. The fiery element mercilessly devours the remains of a once majestic landscape. Amidst the ashes and scorched trees, Park Han-yeol struggles to come to her senses, wondering about the strange emptiness of this place. They survey the scale of the destruction, reflecting on what this once sacred space has become. Park Han-yeol is skeptical about the prospects of this abandoned area, calculating the future profits. As if having forgotten about the recent danger, he's already making grandiose plans for the future harvest. But a sudden burst of music disrupts the idyll, causing Park Han-yeol to become wary. From somewhere in my pocket, a painfully familiar and terribly inappropriate melody is heard. The companion immediately tries to stop this nightmare by rushing to the source of the sound, but it's too late. Park Han-yeol has already intercepted the flying gadget with a clear premonition of trouble. The screen flashes with an unbearably bright light, revealing to the world the nightmare of any sane person. Those very princes are on the line. It seems that on the other end of the line, they are sincerely convinced that Park Han-yeol is about to fall victim to another crazy prank. But the reality turns out to be much more mundane. Before us unfolds the most ordinary scene of capitulation in the face of absurdity. Even the teddy bear freezes for a second, greedily devouring a wild berry under the rays of the setting sun. Park Han-yeol sighs heavily, digesting the surreal nature of what is happening. With his arms spread wide, he literally takes this blow of fate with his whole heart. Waking up on the ground, Park Han-yeol looks around in disbelief, trying to comprehend the scale of the destruction. His faithful furry companion continues to devour the berries, not sharing his master's existential crisis in the least. Park Han-yeol touches his chin thoughtfully, assessing the results of his recent vigorous activity. Park Han-yeol's gaze becomes almost philosophical. How much effort was put into arranging this shelter? With an instinctive movement, Park Han-yeol adjusts his collar, as if preparing himself for a new round of madness. Images of past victories and majestic tree guardians flash before my mind's eye. Or maybe it's worth casting aside doubts and becoming even stronger than before? With a sharp movement, Park Han-yeol drops to the ground, ready for decisive action. First of all, we need to bring order to this chaos. Park Han-yeol looks around the devastated lands, figuring out the future workfront. With a casual movement, Park Han-yeol throws the case with the mysterious contents behind her back. Fingers confidently slide along the clasp, releasing the ancient weapon. Park Han-yeol looks at his handiwork with a slight smile, mentally acknowledging the scale of the disaster. The wooden staff hits the cracked earth with a dull thud. Park Han-yeol drops to one knee and stands frozen in concentrated anticipation. Park Han-yeol doesn't hesitate for a second before giving herself over to the elements. Energy flows along the shaft, transforming a simple branch into a conductor of primordial power. One moment, and a tiny shoot breaks through the bark, greedily absorbing the life-giving light. The forest comes to life before our eyes. The branches rage, blossoming into lush foliage under an admiring gaze. Park Han-yeol sinks to the ground, feeling the earth respond to his every move. The roots break the soil with a crack, awakening from a long sleep under the hero's feet. Nature explodes in green flames, sending clouds of golden pollen into the air. Wooden fences are covered with living vines, turning into reliable barriers. The spectacle is shocking. What took months happened in a matter of seconds. Park Han-yeol, with a master's gesture, directs the flow of ki, awakening new dormant trunks to life. Mighty guardians of the forest rise from the dust, acquiring the flesh and power of ancient spirits. The spectacular golems bow their heads silently before their creator, acknowledging his will. As if on command, some of the guardians crumble back into dust, restoring balance to the earth. The remaining golems disperse across the area, ready to carry out their eternal service. Park Han-yeol looks over the fruits of her creation triumphantly, feeling pleasantly tired. Even legendary immortal masters of the highest ranks could not have done something like this with such ease. The tedious college spell is squeezing all the juices out of him, forcing him to clutch his head. Park Han-yeol decides to look for a place to rest when she suddenly notices something unusual. The doorframe swings open, revealing an unexpected find. A mysterious ruby crystal sparkles in Park Han-yeol's hands, changing all her plans for the evening. Assessing the scale of the hidden refuge, PK Han-yeol realizes that this place holds many more secrets than it seemed at first glance. While studying the collected data, Park Han-yeol compares historical facts, recalling that this mysterious garden once belonged to the legendary Park Hyun, also known as Gumijin. With a dull thud, the heavy burden falls to the floor, marking the beginning of a new stage of the search. Sitting on the floor, in the quiet, semi-darkness, PK Han-yeol plunges into meditation, trying to tune into the hidden energy flows. Suddenly, his gaze changes dramatically, and his eyes flash with a strange inner light, catching something disturbing. Jumping to his feet, PK Han-yeol looked around in confusion, trying to understand the nature of the sudden impulse. A strange beat of an unknown force resonates with his own breathing, filling the space with growing tension. Looking down at his feet, PK Han-yeol feels a strange tremor coming from the depths of the dungeon itself. Focusing her inner energy, PK Han-yeol summons her power, preparing to do something extraordinary. A flash of magic instantly transforms the ordinary object in Park Han-yeol's hands, entwining it with living, pulsating branches. Without a moment's hesitation, PK Han-yeol hurls the improvised weapon at the wooden flooring. Blow after blow, PK Henyul destroys the barrier, paving the way to the solution. Shards fly in all directions as the powerful attack breaks through the hidden beams beneath the floor. A stunned PK Hanyul freezes as the clearing dust reveals an eerie scene. Just beneath the destroyed floor, a strange barrier is revealed, pulsating with an ominous crimson light. Having gone on reconnaissance to the very edge of the sinkhole, PK Hanyul carefully studies the frightening discovery. Intuition tells the hero the full depth of the hatred hidden here, woven into the ancient spell. Carefully touching the surface of the barrier, PK Hanyul feels the ominous pulsation of alien magic. With the spell-enhanced weapon raised above his head, PK Hanyul prepares to deliver the decisive blow. A powerful explosion shakes the room, finally destroying the mysterious seal under Park Hanyul's feet. Park Hanyul freezes, peering into the opening under the destroyed floor. Was there really a secret room hidden right underneath them? Without thinking twice, Park Hanyul boldly steps into the unknown, taking his faithful companion with him. They smoothly descend into the gloom of an abandoned room where it smells of antiquity and the dust of centuries. In the silence, an ominous title emerges, foreshadowing dark secrets, The Outrages of Lady Yunhua. Park Hanyul finds himself in the mysterious dungeon again, ready to explore every corner of it. Dark shadows of the past come to life, revealing a frightening truth. The Outrages of Lady Yunhua is a chronicle that would have been better left forgotten. A sudden scream cuts through the silence, making the blood run cold. Among the ominous branches and dark silhouettes, someone is desperately struggling with an invisible horror. Noticing a person in trouble, Park Hanyul quickly rushes to help. One moment, and the mysterious force retreats under the onslaught of the savior. The victim falls to his knees, barely holding back tears of relief. A mysterious stranger gently touches the frightened poor man, offering comfort. The words about the path of immortals sound like a mockery of a man trembling with fear. Park Hanyul keeps a close eye on the situation, not missing a single detail. The heavy wooden gates hide even more mysteries behind them. Hands in protective bandages reveal a man accustomed to harsh trials and dangers. The usual sect life is in full swing all around. The students chat lazily, enjoying the calm. Someone looks thoughtfully into the distance, reflecting on the upcoming trials. Park Hanyul freezes, feeling something inside him break. Every moment in this place is imbued with a heavy premonition of change, from which there is no escape. He is like an outside observer in someone else's game, where his role has long been prescribed by someone above. The darkness thickens around, giving birth to ominous shadows ready to swallow up the remnants of doubt. After all, for a long time he was just a spineless grain of sand in the huge mechanism of other people's destinies. But even amidst the disdainful glances and ridicule, Park Hanyul continued to stubbornly seek his way. Again and again, bending over the scrolls, he put every ounce of strength into the movement of his brush. Moments of concentration merge into an endless stream of ink and sleepless nights. Every stroke is a challenge to fate, an attempt to break out of the predetermined circle. The room is drowning in a chaos of torn sheets and forgotten treatises, reflecting the storm in his soul. But through the veil of despair, a faint ray of hope dawned. Suddenly, the majestic figure of the mistress of the sectarian domain appears before him. Her silent presence fills the space with reverent awe. At this moment, Park Hanyul is given more than just new lands and ancient secrets. Tears of relief and gratitude fill his eyes as the treasured artifact appears in his hands. This recognition, which he had dreamed of for so long, changes the balance of power once and for all. New energy bursts forth, causing the air to sparkle with unprecedented power. Streams of ki obediently wrap around his hands, awakening hidden potential. Park Hanyul clenches his fists, feeling the ancient art fill his body with steely confidence. However, behind the outward victory lies something sinister, ready to test his limits. It seems that this power is slipping away, leaving only a faint shadow of its former greatness. It is as if the ancient art of the Earth Dragon itself is resisting its new owner. Park Hanyul freezes in tension, absorbing the heavy atmosphere of the abandoned hall. He peers into the yellowed pages of an ancient tome, trying to decipher the hidden meaning. But the lines contain only dry instructions, without providing answers to burning questions. Park Hanyul frowns, feeling increasingly irritated by this useless chatter. However, among the dusty relics there is something completely different, something that stands out from the general order. A heavy aura suddenly presses on the shoulders, reminding of the harsh covenants of the past. Park Hanyul studies strange finds, among which the mysterious mandrake seeds stand out. This legendary root is capable of emitting a scream that can suck the very life out of an unwary fool. Park Hanyul finds himself holding a strange, cylindrical object in his hands, which only leaves him puzzled. He twists the thing in his fingers, trying in vain to find even one mention of it in the records. Park Han-yul looks at the mysterious tube skeptically, suspecting it to be a simple fake. But as soon as you touch the artifact, the space around you begins to warp. A powerful burst of energy erupts outward, catching Park Han-yul off guard. A powerful blow sends Park Han-yul flying backwards, scattering pieces of wooden structures. The enraged bear cub rushes towards the gap, not believing his eyes. Park Han-yul rises from the dust, rubbing his bruised head and trying to comprehend what happened. Could this mysterious object really be just a stupid joke? But there is no time to think, and Park Han-yul is ready to rush into battle again. Park Han-yul squinted in disbelief as he looked at the strange find. With a sharp swing, he checks the balance of the unusual object in his hand. A daring thought flashes through my head. What if this is a formidable weapon? Meanwhile, elsewhere, tensions reach a fever pitch, leaving those present holding their breath. With a dull thud, the heady palanquins fall to the ground, announcing the arrival of uninvited guests. The hostess of this place greets guests with deceptive courtesy that conceals mortal danger. But the majestic mistress of the shrine radiates an aura of incomprehensible, oppressive power. Her cold gaze pierces right through, leaving no chance for secrets. And Park Han-yul continues to ponder the riddle, feeling the stakes increase with every second. The mysterious artifact in his hand contains ancient and unpredictable energy. Historical parallels come to life in the memory, recalling great rulers and legendary warriors of the past. Each of them left their mark on the fate of the Korean peninsula, possessing an unbending will and strength. These legends intertwine with reality, raising new questions about the nature of the artifacts. Flashes of lightning cut across the night sky, illuminating ominous ruins and ancient scrolls. Inside the secret vault, something is discovered that has been hidden from view for centuries. But the owner of the shrine is in no hurry to reveal all her cards, continuing to play her dangerous game. Her words sound like an elaborate trap for those who dare to ask unnecessary questions. The mutual distrust between influential figures becomes almost palpable. The mistress of the shrine's withering gaze seems to warn of the inevitable retribution for curiosity. Tensions are running high as the truth about the ancient weapon could change everything. The gaze of the mistress of the shrine pierces the very soul, demanding an answer to an unspoken question. She studies the uninvited guest coldly, weighing his every word in the silence of the sanctuary. As if hypnotized, her confidant freezes before the ruler of the dark cult. But a moment later, the tension is replaced by a mysterious smile that changes the rules of the game. Meanwhile, alarming rumors about an upcoming grand spectacle are circulating in the city. People whisper in the streets, amazed by Lady Yunhua's bold decision to broadcast the battle of the deities to the entire world. At this very moment, Park Han-yul confidently walks towards the meeting place, unaware of the scale of the conspiracy. He is accompanied by a squad of guards, ready to prevent any unexpected events at any moment. A bright light fills the courtyard, blinding those who arrive with its mystical purity. The space around begins to warp, filling with a strange energy of awakening. Among the blossoming branches, Park Han-yul is serenely enjoying the moment, as if what is happening does not concern him at all. Crunching on a fruit, he watches the hustle and bustle around him with slight irony. The atmosphere is filled with the scent of flowers and anticipation of the inevitable storm. Park Han-yul sits leisurely on the dais, as if he owned the place, leafing through ancient records. Delicate flowers bloom all around, emphasizing the surreal nature of what is happening. Park's companions are outraged by such carelessness on the part of the local inhabitants. One of them angrily demands that due respect be shown to the arriving guests. But Park Han-yul only raises his hand, gesturing to stop the unnecessary arguments. With a sly smile, he is the first to extend a hand for reconciliation, breaking the ice of mistrust. A firm handshake marks the beginning of a new union that can shake this world. Park Han-yul approaches his interlocutors carefreely, as if he had dropped in for a cup of tea and not to decide their fates. With one easy movement, he displays his status card, capturing everyone's attention. Those around freeze in shock, not believing their eyes and amazed by the revealed truth. Meanwhile, hard work is in full swing in the garden. Even the Celestials are serving out harsh punishment here, atoning for past sins. Park Han-yul slowly settles down in the shade of the gazebo, enjoying the moment of general confusion. A measured conversation over tea is just beginning, hiding true intentions behind polite smiles. Park Han-yul's interlocutor maintains the dialogue with genuine interest, drawing him into a dangerous game. Park Han-yul pretends to be deep in thought, but his sharp mind is already calculating his opponent's every move. The servants bow their heads respectfully before the guest, afraid to breathe even once in his presence. Without hiding his admiration, Park Hanyul jokingly acknowledges the authority of his comrade in misfortune. Park Hanyul glances at the scene, maintaining an outward calm. Behind this innocent conversation lies something more, a subtle calculation and anticipation of the coming storm. Meanwhile, alarming news is heard in the ceremonial hall. The sacred gates have finally opened. The majestic lady receives reports with icy calm on her face. She disdains the naivety of mortals who blindly trust the victories of others. But behind the outward restraint lies the predatory grin of an ambitious player. The rapid sound of footsteps breaks the silence of the palace. A messenger is rushing to convey an urgent message. The lady turns around, maintaining a regal posture and cold contempt in her gaze. Her cold calculation collides with the impudence of an uninvited guest who has disrupted her plans. She proudly brushes off the problems, showing that family tea drinking is above all else for her. Goshal jumps up from his seat, shocked by such insolence, and his eyes flash with righteous anger. He surges forward in rage, unable to contain his emotions at the challenge. But the instant attack makes no impression on the opponent, because she only coldly parries his words. Go, Yunhua calmly takes a sip of tea, dealing a mental blow with a merciless mockery. Those around him freeze, and Go Shal himself is completely disoriented by this turn of events. Go Hunhua's cold and piercing gaze leaves no chance for justification. The confused guest barely finds the strength to squeeze out a pathetic semblance of an answer. The tension in the arena reaches its peak when Park Hanyul comes face to face with an angry opponent. The noise of the hushed crowd in the stands fades away, turning into an ominous hum of anticipation. The spectators froze in anticipation of a grand battle, discussing every move of the future opponents. Park Hanyul looks around in confusion, not fully understanding the reason for the general excitement. His opponent takes a fighting stance, emitting a powerful and dangerous aura around himself. Park Hanyul's eyes gleam with a menace bordering on recklessness. Park Hanyul himself mentally scratches the back of his head, sincerely perplexed as to why everyone perceives his words with such hostility. He touches his chin thoughtfully, trying to assess the scale of the problem hanging over him. But the next moment, Park Hanyul's face distorts as the realization of the absurdity of the situation dawns on him. A funny little bear interrupts his dark thoughts by serenely enjoying a wild berry. The cute, chibi versions of the characters add a fun contrast to the tense atmosphere. Winter holiday scenes replace the harsh reality of the arena, providing a respite from the battles. Park Hanyul is once again the center of attention, maintaining a calm demeanor amidst the lull. Park Hanyul's opponent is seething with rage, ready to burn everything in his path. His eyes turn bloodshot, and his threats sound like he really wants to tear the guy apart. Park Hanyul just scratched the back of his head slightly, mentally perplexed by such bestial hostility. But then a predatory smile plays on his lips. The enemy's blind rage is the perfect weapon in skilled hands. The opponent rushes forward, unleashing destructive magic. The arena shakes with the power of crushing blows capable of grinding the enemy into dust. Park Hanyul gracefully avoids the deadly barrage, easily maneuvering on the edge of the abyss. In an instant, a strange whirlwind of petals materializes in his hands. A dull thud is heard as the magic encounters an unexpected obstacle. The enemy is shocked. Did this frivolous trick really block his attack? Park Hanyul calmly scatters the green petals, never losing control of the situation for a second. And the arrogant opponent is already preparing a new counterattack, confident in his superiority. A wave of icy energy rushes forward, filling the space around with oppressive cold. Park Hanyul calmly watches the approaching storm, feeling like he is the director of this performance. The enemy's face distorts in anticipation of an easy victory, full of gloating joy. But Park Hanyul had already prepared a surprise, calling forth a shining golden bud. An explosion of blinding light instantly fills the space, causing the stands to freeze. Incredible energy spreads out in circles, scattering everything in its path. The opponent realizes with horror the absurdity of his situation as the ground slips out from under his feet. Blinded by panic, he realizes the terrible truth. This strange shield doesn't just protect, it devours his own power. Park Hanyul just weighs it off lightly, gently smoothing over the edges of this awkward situation. The enemy is defeated and demoralized, and a tense silence hangs all around. But the battlefield doesn't remain empty for long. The imperturbable Damdiak enters the arena. He is determined to continue the fight, but his gaze is directed higher, to the majestic figure on the dais. Damdiak is confident of Park Hanyul's unconditional triumph, recognizing the colossal difference in their strength. His deep respect for his rival sounds like an incontrovertible fact. Such a grandiose pavilion is beyond the power of mere mortals to erect. The mysterious Lady Yuhua remains silent, hiding her true thoughts behind her fan. However, her sudden decision is made without unnecessary debate. The winner's talent is too obvious. Park Han-yul frowned in disbelief, not quite believing that the lady's ambitious nephew would be defeated so quickly. He glances briefly at his companion, assessing the situation. Damdiak remains an unwavering guardian of order, the embodiment of power. Meanwhile, the opening landscape reminds us of the scale of this influential clan. Park Han-yul understands perfectly well that his rapid progress and mastery of the rare wood element are causing great concern among the elders. A mischievous glint flashes in his gray eyes. He is ready to get ahead of the game. Park Han-yul bows before the lady with assurances of absolute devotion, proposing an alliance. Lady Yuhua responds with a mysterious, predatory smile, accepting the challenge. The conversation is over, and Park Han-yul is about to leave the room, but suddenly he stops, remembering the most important thing. Turning around, Park Han-yul is about to ask the final question that could change the balance of power. Space is distorted, transporting the heroes to the familiar world of a modern city where their adventures continue. Instead of answering the question, the companion changes the subject himself, smiling softly and introducing himself to his guide. Behind the menacing image lies a legendary ruler of antiquity, ready to open a new page in his acquaintance with modernity. Park Han-yul can barely hide his surprise as he realizes the enormity of the figure standing next to him. However, this majestic ruler displays a childlike curiosity about the simple joys of modern life. Park Han-yul notices how much his companion has changed since their first tense meeting. They find themselves in the middle of a busy city street, where every corner holds amazing discoveries. An unusual treat brings a genuine smile, lightening the mood with a casual joke. Both heroes happily immerse themselves in the atmosphere of peaceful city life, wearing funny glasses. Even the legendary ruler is genuinely enjoying the moment, although he has not yet fully adjusted to this reality. Ordinary passers-by rush past, immersed in their daily concerns and unaware of who is walking next to them. Park Han-yul looks thoughtfully at the world around him, remembering the long journey that led them here. The ruler mentally returns to the past, reflecting on how much remains unfinished. However, looking at the thriving metropolis, he feels proud of what this world has become. This thought brings him peace and well-deserved joy after all the trials. His companion responds with a warm smile, sharing this quiet moment of triumph. Park Han-yul invites you to take a look at the capital's main attractions as you continue your walk. But suddenly, the peaceful silence of the street is broken by angry shouts and the noise of a disgruntled crowd. People wearing red armbands chant slogans accusing the authorities of heinous crimes. Angry voices are demanding an end to what they call monstrous sacrifices. The companion freezes, and a dangerous and cold light of anger flashes in his eyes. Park Han-yul wants to figure everything out immediately, but a sudden hum makes him freeze in place. The sky above the square is rapidly darkening, as if space itself has decided to cover them with an ominous dome. The companion makes a grave plea to him to protect these people from the impending disaster. But before they can react, blinding columns of alien energy crash down directly onto the crowd. Powerful explosions rock everything around, and frightened people scatter in panic under a hail of destructive attacks. From the swirling haze emerges a mysterious figure in strange attire, radiating an overwhelming aura. This unknown person with a bandage on his face looks coldly and contemptuously at the frightened people around him. The executioner's icy voice echoes across the square, pronouncing the death sentence on those who dared to disturb the order. New explosions break the silence, turning the streets into a battlefield for merciless reprisals. Park Han-yul no longer intends to hold back. Anger flashes in his eyes, and powerful energy spreads through his body. With a wild cry, he rushes forward, unleashing the destructive power of his weapon. His every movement is imbued with seething anger at those who imagine themselves to be the arbiters of other people's destinies. A crushing blow falls to the ground, raising clouds of stone chips and scattering enemies in different directions. In the center of the resulting crater lies a defeated enemy, motionless, but it is too early to relax. Park Han-yul looks around sharply, feeling danger approaching from a new direction. Hellish chaos continues around him. Destruction and cries of despair fill every corner of the square. Merciless attackers hunt down defenseless people, leaving them no chance of escape. Park Han-yul notices one of the enemies swinging at the fugitive, his face contorted in anger. Called out by a sharp shout, he barely has time to notice the threat hanging over him. At the last second, Park Han-yul dodges a crushing blow, narrowly escaping the deadly trap. Chaos engulfs the square as the robed strangers rapidly change their positions. Park Han-yul looks up at the raised platform where the mysterious figure stands frozen. The blindfolded stranger summons hidden power, preparing to strike. But at the most critical moment, her movements freeze under the weight of someone else's awareness. Park Han-yul narrows his eyes, instantly recognizing the familiar and dangerous aura. She exudes powerful yin energy, and Park Han-yul immediately understands who he is dealing with. Old connections and the shadow of past clashes come to light in his memory. The robed figure tenses, exuding a terrible threat and a thirst for blood. But Park Han-yul only grins, not losing his feigned calm for a second. A bright flash surrounds him, transforming the air around him into a dense cocoon of pure energy. The warlike silhouette freezes, ready to repel any attack. Park Han-yul speaks words full of chilling contempt as he addresses the true culprit. Magical energy materializes, creating a formidable army from the depths of the earth. The tree monsters take off from their places, obeying an invisible command. Chaos erupts as monsters descend upon enemies without warning. Sudden attacks sow panic among opponents caught off guard. The battlefield turns into the epicenter of destruction, accompanied by incessant screams. Amidst the general madness, cultists summon even darker creatures. New monsters enter the fray, destroying everything in their path. Park Han-yul watches the carnage, assessing the situation and deciding when to make his next move. Park Han-yul takes a deep breath as he prepares the strange equipment. Unusual enchanted objects materialize in his hands, emitting a mysterious glow. With one sharp movement, Park Han-yul throws them straight to the ground, activating a hidden mechanism. Magical shoots instantly break through the stone floor, growing before our eyes. The boy looks at his opponents with disdain, grabbing one of the improvised spears. He is overcome with the thrill of battle and rushes into the thick of the enemy, leaving them no chance. With every swing of the shaft, Park Han-yul mercilessly destroys his opponents one after another. In the whirlwind of battle, he gracefully weaves between enemies, turning the battlefield into his own stage. Monsters rush at him from all sides, but Park Han-yul is always one step ahead. From a bird's-eye view, you can see how his attacks methodically mow down the ranks of the attackers. The enemy leader watches this with a mad grin, anticipating the outcome. He orders his henchmen to increase their pressure and deal with the insolent man. The cultists receive new orders, but suddenly things don't go according to plan. An invisible wave of crushing force covers them completely. The enemy leader chokes on blood, feeling his own powers turning against him. The henchmen fall to their knees in horror, clutching their heads under the onslaught of suffocating magic. Chaos mounts, and even elite fighters find themselves completely helpless in the face of an unknown threat. The main villain looks at his trembling hands in panic, not understanding the nature of what is happening. Park Han-yul calmly watches as the enemies panic. He confidently steps forward, fully aware that victory is already in his pocket. Park Han-yul slowly twirls a long, smoking pipe in his hand, enjoying the moment of absolute superiority. A relaxed, almost mocking grin plays on his face, the grin of a man who controls his opponent's every move. The defeated enemy falls to the ground, his fingers helplessly clinging to the cold stone and coughing heavily. Park Han-yul only glances lazily at her defeated opponent, not seeing the slightest threat in her. Suddenly, a powerful wave of energy rips through space, causing Park Han-yul to jump back sharply. A familiar voice cuts through the silence, causing Park Han-yul to freeze in surprise. A powerful figure appears out of nowhere, mercilessly slamming the enemy face first into the ground. Park Han-yul recognizes this silhouette, and for a second his confidence is replaced by dull shock. A new meeting with an old acquaintance hits the nerves harder than any spell. And again, a heavy blow falls on the one who just a moment ago considered himself master of the situation. A stunned Park Han-yul freezes in place, realizing the scale of the chaos that is unfolding. Panic is rising all around, and the enemies are trying to understand what unknown force has fallen upon their heads. Rage distorts the features of the defeated warrior, but he is no longer able to change the outcome of the battle. The cold and unyielding voice of the new participant in the conflict sounds like a sentence for everyone gathered. Meanwhile, an ominous aura begins to swirl around, foreshadowing an even greater storm. A grin of madness distorts the face of someone who is preparing to release all his accumulated anger. A burst of dark energy covers the battlefield, turning the situation into a real nightmare. Park Han-yul watches in alarm as the wave of destruction sweeps away everything in its path. The situation quickly spirals out of control, causing Park Han-yul to become tense inside. The dark cocoon closes, hiding within it a force ready to burst forth at any moment. Park Han-yul freezes, feeling the reality around her crack at the seams. His mind races with thoughts about what kind of weapon could deal with this nightmare. Could it be that ancient legends, capable of shaking the very foundations of the human world, had come to life before him? A flash of insight makes him turn around sharply, his gaze catching sight of a new figure on the battlefield. The energy around the stranger in traditional clothing is heating up to the limit, threatening to sweep away all living things. Park Hanyul instinctively retreats, trying to shield his ally from the approaching storm. The sky above them splits under the onslaught of divine power, emitting a blinding radiance. The Celestial raises his ancient weapon, ready to deliver a harsh verdict. His voice sounds cold and dispassionate, separating the sins of the past and the present. The look is filled with an unwavering determination to administer justice of the highest order. The next moment, a blinding discharge pierces space, rushing towards the target. The enemy lets out a desperate, bestial cry, choking on a stream of destructive energy. A powerful shockwave spreads in all directions, leaving behind a scorched wasteland. Park Hanyul looks appraisingly at his comrade, who stands frozen next to him after the storm has passed. Meanwhile, panic is rising in news studios around the world over the loss of staff. Breaking news broadcasts are full of images of destruction and chaos engulfing the streets. Experts are desperately trying to comprehend the scale of the disaster and the government's inaction. In the shadows of high society, influential figures watch events unfold with cold calculation. Streamers and bloggers are picking up on the hot topic, fueling public interest to the limit. So wire of particularly is... At that moment, the broadcast's viewers froze on the other side of the screen, awaiting the outcome. Park Hanyul himself maintained an outward calm, although the situation was escalating. The supreme ruler attracts everyone's attention with a slight movement of her hand. Her piercing gaze does not bode well for the guilty. Park Hanyul takes full responsibility for his actions, humbly admitting the gravity of his actions. He is ready to accept any punishment that the highest court deigns to impose. The ruler narrows her eyes thoughtfully, assessing the insolence of the offender. How dare he look up when his guilt is so obvious? Park Hanyul doesn't look away, causing only a fit of hidden irritation in the ruler. But behind the feigned severity lies a completely different emotion. It seems that Her Majesty is not truly angry at all. Rather, she is secretly pleased with this guy's daring act. Her advisor silently watches what is happening, not interfering in the emotional storm. In the end, the verdict is milder than anyone expected. Park Hanyul receives only a light warning instead of a severe punishment. He nods reservedly, accepting the words of instruction. Inwardly, Park Hanyul breathes a sigh of relief. Everything turned out better than it could have. Leaving behind the official halls, he returns to the usual flow of days. Park Hanyul heads to the abandoned gazebo to finally examine her mysterious find. Having unrolled ancient scrolls, he immerses himself in the study of mysterious artifacts. An unexpected burst of indignation breaks the silence of the gazebo, causing Park Hanyul to flinch. As if not noticing the young man's surprise, a small but incredibly emotional spirit continues to rage on the top of his head. Park Hanyul turns around in confusion, trying to understand what caused this sudden outburst of anger. The memory of an ancient creature comes to life in dark images, resurrecting centuries-old resentment against those who once suppressed the sacred energy of the mountains. Unabated, the tiny companion showers curses upon the ancient rulers, not mincing words. Park Hanyul freezes, listening with growing concern to the frightening revelations. The spirit's memories take them back to the times of cruel reprisals and insidious curses that drained the strength of great men of the past. Heavy shadows of the past fall upon them both, reminding them of the fragility of human life in the face of divine wrath. The baby sighs heavily, as if acknowledging the bitter truth about the frailty of mortals. But even among the dark legends, the intelligence of this boy evokes in the spirit an involuntary respect, worthy even of the Celestials. If only he had enough time, the world would have seen something truly great. However, every mortal has his own limit, and Park Hanyul is no exception. Park Hanyul's gaze warms, and a sly, confident smile plays on his lips. By swapping her usual clothes for a traditional outfit, Park Hanyul appears in a completely new, put-together look. With a flick of his finger, he summons a spark of pure energy, awakening ancient magic. An invisible force picks up the scrolls in the air, causing them to float in a glowing halo. Park Hanyul's face contorts with the sudden realization that what seemed like a fairy tale suddenly turns out to be a frightening reality. A system of ancient knowledge reveals itself to him, requiring only one thing: to speak the words out loud in order to bring them to life. Park Hanyul puts her finger to her lips, whispering the cherished spell with concentration. A burst of flame devours the artifacts, but the silence is broken, not by the crackling of the fire, but by the deafening cry of horror from Park Hanyul. Park Hanyul raises her arms in ecstasy, calling upon the most destructive element. His companion bursts into screams as he watches the flames rage out of control. The debris of the surviving structures is scattered in all directions by the powerful shockwave. Park Han-yeol just brushes it off easily, finding a reason for self-irony. A thoughtful gesture reveals the work of thought. The young strategist is calculating the risks. A resounding echo carries calls for universal rejoicing. A crowd of faceless onlookers enthusiastically chant the name of the new element. Park Han-yeol returns to his usual role as a bystander, hiding his true intentions. The space around begins to warp under the influence of a hidden threat. Park Han-yeol gazes up at the endless blue sky. A slight smile touches Park Han-yeol's lips as he realizes the humor of the situation. A sudden shadow makes Park Han-yeol abruptly cut off his sentence mid-sentence. An uninvited guest with a sinister grin appears from the fog. Park Han-yeol freezes, feeling the chilling cold from the unexpected meeting. The guest repeats his gesture, turning the triumph into an absurd farce. A wave of despair overwhelms Park Han-yeol, while her rival celebrates her victory. The sarcasm in his companion's voice sounds like a coup de grace to Park Han-yeol's pride. A predatory gleam in the eyes does not bode well for the loser. A nervous tremor reveals Park Han-yeol's confusion in the face of the approaching storm. Park Han-yeol is trying to save face, although the situation has long since gotten out of control. The interlocutor, with a slight smile, acknowledges Park Han-yeol's growing strength, noting his impressive successes. Park Han-yeol shyly covers her face with her hand, trying to hide the blush that has risen in her cheeks. She looks away and casually throws out that her unexpected visit and participation in the fight were just an argument with her aunt. All around, work is in full swing. Strange tree creatures carefully sort the golden fruits, as if checking Park Han-yeol's readiness for the tests. Suddenly, a heavy package lands in Park Han-yeol's hands, causing him to turn around sharply in bewilderment. The interlocutor explains that this is a sacred scripture that she was told to pass on to the new participant. The image floating down the stream of memory comes to life before the eyes, revealing ancient myths of divine intervention. The she-bear endured all the hardships of the test without complaint, unlike the escaped tiger. Having overcome the ordeal of cold and darkness, she took on human form and was given the name Un-neo. Their alliance with Hwanggung gave birth to Tongun, laying the legendary foundation for the entire history of Korea. However, behind the grandeur of the myth lurked a bitter shadow. Un-neo never became the divine ruler's legal wife. The awareness of this historical flaw flashes through the interlocutor's thoughts, causing a slight shadow of anxiety in her. Thoughts return to a harsh reality, where shadows of the past unexpectedly overtake them in the middle of an abandoned courtyard. The figure of a mysterious man with a massive bundle in his hands appears again before the mind's eye, reminding us of unsolved mysteries. The interlocutor continues the story, recalling the words of this strange man about impending troubles. Park Han-yeol reads the lines, feeling a strange, long-forgotten feeling boiling inside her. A cold flame flares in Park Han-yeol's eyes, and questions burn from within more powerfully than any weapon. Where exactly did she encounter the man who calls himself Park Han-yeol's father? The foggy outlines of distant Shenfu, where this fateful collision took place, flash through my memory. Park Han-yeol freezes, feeling the weight of the unexpected news turn all his usual notions about the past upside down. Memory throws up strange fragments of the past, forcing Park Han-yeol to relive the moment of the fateful meeting. The image of an altar, drowning in funeral wreaths and cold silence, clearly appears before my eyes. Park Han-yeol frowns as he peers at the ancient artifact, as if trying to unravel its sinister secret. His companion hurriedly nudges him, demanding that he immediately tear off the lid of the mysterious hiding place. Park Han-yeol weighs the box in his hands with disbelief, trying to understand what treasure he was given. His gaze falls on the contents, and his gray eyes widen in surprise. Hidden inside the football is an ancient fan engraved with mystical hieroglyphs, emitting a blinding glow. As if in response to the artifact's awakening, reality around begins to distort, revealing the terrifying face of an ancient monster. A nightmarish serpent writhes in streams of mystical flame, ready to break free from its chain. Park Han-yeol suddenly opens her fan, feeling a powerful ancient wave spreading in all directions. He grins triumphantly, flaunting his newfound strength that any great sage would envy. The girl looks at him with a slight smile, in which one could read a mixture of admiration and hidden anxiety. Park Han-yeol thoughtfully studies ancient scrolls, trying to understand the intricacies of controlling the sacred fan. Suddenly, the air around him changes, electrifying the space with a subtle presence. Park Han-yeol freezes in alarm, catching the familiar vibrations in the flow of qi. The serene glow of the forest that envelops the space is filled with new colors when an uninvited guest emerges through the veil of flowers. Park Henyul turns around abruptly at the sound of footsteps and pronounces the name of the person who appeared in amazement. He walks leisurely among the flowering branches, responding to the greeting with restrained politeness. Tension hangs in the air as Park Han-yul tries to understand the true purpose of this unexpected visit. Her hearts, and more every say that sees the face of the other play. Park Han-yul freezes when his interlocutor makes an unexpected and daring request to create a legendary artifact. Dark images of the past surface in his memory, when natural disasters and the ambitions of underwater rulers drowned the world in blood. Then the dragons of the three seas unleashed a merciless slaughter, leaving behind only mountains of ash and countless victims. Only the unification of the three states made it possible to stop this insane nightmare and restore the fragile balance. It was then that she was born, Manpashchik, the divine flute, capable of taming the elements themselves. However, this artifact was entrusted to Scylla, whose lands border the domain of the most powerful dragon king of the Eastern Sea. Park Han-yul quickly puts the pieces of the puzzle together, understanding the guest's true motives. Trying to comprehend the scale of the looming threat, Park Han-yul frowns at the weight of the revealed truth. Any careless move could awaken Lady Yuan's paranoia and trigger a new global war. After all, if the Scaly Lords learn of the theft of the Black Chalice, they will do anything to destroy both the artifact and its creator. But while Park Han-yul's thoughts are occupied with gloomy predictions, his interlocutor continues to stick to his guns. Looking at the protest posters on the streets, Park Han-yul acutely feels the fragility of the human world in the face of ancient forces. And yet, despite all the risks, Park Han-yul's face suddenly lights up with an unexpected and wide smile. The interlocutor enthusiastically assures that it is a great honor for the common people to stand shoulder to shoulder with such a hero. Park Han-yul pauses for a moment, embarrassed, sincerely doubting his own usefulness in such a grandiose matter. But a moment later, Park Han-yul's booming laughter dispels the heavy clouds of doubt. He pats his interlocutor on the shoulder in a friendly manner, finally accepting the rules of this dangerous game. Behind this friendly gesticulation lies something more than a simple agreement between two comrades. Park Han-yul touches the satellite with a confident movement, and at that moment the air around them begins to vibrate with the awakening of hidden power. Club. The energy flares with a bright light, pulling Park Han-yul into a new dimension. Once there, he is surprised to realize the unusual way they got there. Park Han-yul's companion assesses the situation, realizing that a serious test lies ahead. Park Han-yul takes out a wooden figurine from his pocket, filling it with his chi. Magical energy brings the toy to life, turning it into a majestic steed. Park Han-yul gestures for his companion to follow him. Extending his hand, Park Han-yul helps his comrade enter into resonance with the space. A stream of light envelops their figures, transferring them to the back of a horse created from energy. Rushing forward through the raging elements, Park Han-yul reassures his companion, promising complete safety. A sudden shout makes them abruptly end their conversation. From the depths of the water, right in front of them, terrifying sea monsters rise. Huge sharks and tentacles block the way, exuding a deadly aura. Park Han-yul does not lose her composure, maintaining absolute calm at a critical moment. With a deft maneuver, the steed soars into the air, escaping the attacking teeth and tentacles. Finally, they reach the coveted island, rising above the waves. The companion turns back with an anxious look, assessing the chase left behind. Park Han-yul nods confidently as he jumps down onto the solid ground. But even here, it's too early to relax. The tree branches are moving, hiding new enemies. Having assessed the threat, Park Han-yul concentratedly takes out the instrument, realizing that there is no time for long conversations. With each passing moment, the hostile force around them only grows, requiring the utmost concentration from the heroes. The air heats up from the rapid movement, turning the forest thicket into a blurry kaleidoscope of flashes. Park Han-yul gracefully dodges the attack, noting to himself that a jade bowl would be very useful here. For a moment, his face freezes in concentrated analysis, assessing the scale of the approaching storm. At that very moment, a wild creature jumps out of the shadows, eager to tear the uninvited guest apart. Park Han-yul jumps back with lightning speed, dodging the deadly claws. His gaze hardens, and the cold sweat betrays the tension. There are clearly more enemies here than it seems. From all sides, new creepy creatures crawl out of the bushes, surrounding him in a tight ring. But Park Han-yul is not going to give up, remembering that he has already used the mandrake, although the path is still blocked. The pack of creatures rushes forward at breakneck speed, leaving no time to think. With one sharp swing of her fan, Park Han-yul releases hidden power. As if called by an ancient spell, the space is illuminated by a blinding light, breaking the silence of the forest. One of the monsters chokes on its own rage, receiving a powerful rebuff. In the midst of the chaos on the battlefield, a colossal figure of a beast engulfed in flames materializes. The fire giant descends upon his enemies with a thunderous roar, destroying everything in his path. Powerful blows from the paws scatter the monsters in different directions like fluff. The fiery monster continues to crush its opponents, bringing terror to the entire area. Park Han-yul watches the destruction calmly, relishing the opportunity to unleash this devastating force. It is not for nothing that this spirit is called the mountain deity of fire, although this appearance is far from his true face. A raging flame consumes everything around, erasing the line between reality and ancient myth. Kiam, a flash of rage engulfs everything around, turning the familiar world into an arena for the battle of titans. The local inhabitants, as if sensing something was wrong, scatter in panic, trying to escape. Park Han-yul watches this sudden migration with puzzlement, trying to understand the reason for the sudden fright. But the rapid flight of the monsters only pushes him to unravel what is happening. Assessing the scale of what is happening, Park Han-yul realizes what colossal energy the mysterious artifact is absorbing. His intense gaze reveals his deep concentration and analytical mind. A strange ancient structure, emitting a strange aura, appears before the hero's eyes. Meanwhile, the frightened creatures rush to hide in the dense thickets, leaving the heroes completely bewildered. A bird's-eye view reveals a mysterious object pulsating with hidden power. Park Han-yul squints, noticing something unusual ahead. The companions do not miss the opportunity to grumble, expressing dissatisfaction with what is happening and calling for action. Without wasting any time, Park Han-yul urges his comrades on, intending to put on a small light show here. The fan's swing is accompanied by a powerful attack, ready to sweep away everything in its path. One precise blow and the enemies fly apart in different directions, accompanied by booming laughter. Suddenly, the situation takes an unexpected turn, causing one to freeze in surprise. A powerful stream of water interrupts the triumph, dousing the heroes from head to toe. Park Han-yul instantly reacts to the threat, seizing the initiative and creating a protective barrier. A vortex of magical energy rises around, cutting the air into pieces. Finally, the true culprit of all the mysteries of this mysterious place appears before them. The little companion is shocked to realize the scale of the truth he has discovered. Park Han-yul is met with an incredible sight. A strange creature is trapped among the roots. Park Han-yul immediately notices every detail, trying to understand the true nature of such an unusual disturber of the peace. But the tiny companion on his shoulder is already in hysterics at the prospect of facing a whole pack of such monsters. Images from the past come to mind, when these creatures seemed like harmless companions of powerful masters. Meanwhile, the furry little animal on Park Han-yul's shoulder does not hide its fierce hatred for the one who sealed its power. The bound creature appears completely helpless, evoking a mixture of pity and skepticism in the observer. Park Han-yul calmly analyzes the situation, coming to the conclusion that this child clearly did not bother to train. But instead of making threats, Park Han-yul only smiled radiantly, radiating a strange calm. The little companion freezes in horror, dreading the crazy idea of his partner. Park Han-yul abruptly waves her fan, not intending to stand on ceremony with the crying creature for long. A powerful stream of energy destroys everything in its path, causing the trapped creature to squeal in surprise. A bright flash illuminates the space, absorbing sounds and leaving only a ringing silence. Park Han-yul raises her fan in triumph, directing the raging streams of chi in the right direction. Inside the artifact, ancient symbols come to life, sealing the very essence of the defeated creatures. Meanwhile, in an illusory world, a tiny animal rests peacefully, unaware of the approaching storm. An unexpected rustle makes him suddenly raise his head and meet the gaze of an enraged bear. A short, frightened squeal, and both creatures rush to flee with a wild cry. Park Han-yul watches this comical chase with laughter, finding the spectacle incredibly funny. A strange wooden object suddenly materializes in his hands, marking a new stage in the plan. And around them, giant bamboo shoots are already growing, hiding the secrets of this mysterious place. Park Han-yul only smiles softly, accepting the words of gratitude with his characteristic calm. But a moment later, his piercing gaze detects a strange tension in his companion's figure. A sudden coughing fit causes the man to clutch his side, revealing a frightening truth. The blood on the clothes leaves no doubt that behind the outward calm lies a serious injury. Park Han-yul instantly rushes forward, trying to support his comrade and prevent the worst from happening. However, in response, he hears only a calming sigh and assurances that everything is under control. Instead of words, the interlocutor hands him something amazing, a shining sphere of pure energy. The power contained within this artifact contains echoes of ancient and wild elements. Park Han-yul freezes, realizing the true value and weight of this unexpected gift. This stone is a treasure obtained in an unimaginable battle with the ruler of the water element himself. His green eyes reflect deep amazement and a silent question: is this gift really meant for him? But the companion only gently cuts off any objections, reminding him of the harsh reality of the path ahead. Fate is already preparing new trials, and the path to creating a legendary artifact will require great sacrifices. The mysterious flute of Mon Pashichok will be the key to salvation, but the price of this creation is high. Even those who possess enormous power are not immune to fatal twists of fate. Park Han-yul catches his weakened comrade in time, preventing him from falling to the ground. He responds to the support with a sly smile, which reveals an inexhaustible spirit of adventure. The tension dissipates, giving way to light laughter between two comrades ready for new adventures. They confidently step forward, shoulder to shoulder, overcoming the obstacles of this mysterious world. Park Han-yul makes light-hearted fun of his companion, marking the successful completion of yet another crazy mission. The celestial chariot cuts through the clouds above the mirror-like surface of the Eastern Sea. Observers in life jackets are transmitting anxious signals via radio. Groups of the strongest masters stood frozen in tense anticipation on the shore. In the shadow of the rocks, priests and mysterious adherents of ancient cults gather. Park Han-yul casts an appraising glance at what is happening around him. The comrades in arms maintain a stony calm in the face of the inevitable. The envoys read out solemn decrees and letters of welcome. The ceremonial scrolls tremble under the influence of powerful flows of ki. Majestic cliffs are immersed in the mystical glow of the water element. Officials note the impeccable organization of the grand event. A priestess in a bright red robe swings her sword, opening the ritual. The woman in the blue robe instantly closes the distance, making a dash. The figures of the masters quickly dissolve into the blue haze of spells. Fighters wearing menacing demonic masks appear on the rocky plateau. One of the adepts folds his hands in a protective gesture, concentrating the energy. The octagonal-shaped artifact emits a dazzling turquoise glow. The warrior in the demon mask takes a fighting stance, ready to repel any threat. A hand in a protective glove touches a shimmering magical barrier. A mysterious oblong object materializes from the depths of the force field. Park Han-yul is surprised to realize the nature of the sudden resonance. The blade of this hilt it materialized right in the hands of a formidable masked fighter. Even without its true owner, this ancient weapon radiates incredible power. The blade's energy pulsates, filling the space around it with an ominous glow. Those around freeze in surprise, not believing their eyes. The masked figure confidently picks up a blade that resonates with her aura. This kid really wants to win, the warrior thinks. Sometimes he reacts too violently to enemies. Even without its owner, this artifact retained its wild, indomitable will. The cold shine of the metal emphasizes the owner's status. If this sword can handle the swordsman's divine power, his spiritual level is truly enormous. The observer assessed the situation. Park Han-yul listens intently to every word, realizing the scale of the threat. The tension in the arena is growing with every second. Enter Beowulf, the legendary warrior whose name inspires awe. Park Han-yul casts a wary glance at what is happening, trying to calculate the consequences. If it weren't for Beowulf's situation, he muses, feeling growing anxiety. From the depths of the force field, a mysterious oblong object materializes again. Park Han-yul is surprised to realize the nature of the sudden resonance. His breath catches. Everything that is happening turns out to be much more complicated than it seemed at first glance. The other participants also do not stand aside, demonstrating their readiness for battle. But Park Han-yul is already making his move, sending a silent wish for good luck. Han-yul raises his eyebrows in bewilderment, hearing a mocking whisper behind him. Instead of answering, the mysterious woman only smiled enigmatically, casting a dismissive glance over the battlefield. Memories flash through my mind. This lady belongs to the influential Gua clan, whose presence has been felt since its arrival in the heavenly realms. Her thin laugh grates on the ear, and her words sound like a venomous reproach to someone else's naivety. Shifting his gaze, Han-yul notices a sudden movement towards the arena. Patrol spirits with furious grins and glowing eyes surround the enemy, exuding a deadly aura. Phantom predators rush forward, tearing through space with the sounds of eerie screeching. The mage clutches his rosary beads, attempting to turn the tide of the fight with a powerful spell. But the mystical beasts easily overcome the barrier, causing the fighter to freeze in surprise. Kanga watches what is happening in shock, not believing her own eyes. A flash of inexplicable energy pierces the air, causing the blood to run cold. The woman continues to push her point, adding fuel to the fire with caustic comments. She openly examines her mentor's past, pointing out obvious mistakes and the absence of ancient artifacts. Her reasoning sounds so loud that it attracts the attention of onlookers and reporters crowded behind the fence. Meanwhile, the spiritual beings continue to circle above the arena, demonstrating absolute superiority. Hanyul frowns, trying to comprehend what he heard and anticipate the enemy's next move. The exhausted warrior struggles to hold the long pole, breathing heavily and trying not to fall from the pain. The tension reaches its peak as the opponent shifts from foot to foot, preparing for the decisive attack. Guz.